in early March. The hope is he will be a full go in early September. Now, will he play in the preseason? How much will he practice in training camp? All that stuff, that is TBD. But the hope is, still keeps him on track to be ready for week 1 of the NFL regular season, provided the surgery happens in the earlier portion of March. We will continue to monitor this, Andrew. As of right now, doctors recommending that Brock Purdy put it off for a little bit because of that inflammation in the elbow.
All right, so Purdy is expected to be ready for 2023, kickoff early September or so. Ramie, I think it all comes down to one simple question for Niners fans and for us when we talk about this. Is Brock Purdy for this coming year, is he your ride or die at quarterback 1?
No, he can't be. I don't think he would be for me, Nick, if he was 100% healthy. If he played in the NFC Championship and they lost, and he left that game 100% healthy, and he went into the offseason, I don't think I could say Brock Purdy is my ride or die in that case.
Yeah.
Because of what we talked about yesterday. Who was it that said his sample size is just too small for anybody to say anything about him one way or the other? I can't remember.
It was Greg Cosell, and let's go to Greg Cosell right now saying it.
So I'm not saying that he did not have a good year and the story is phenomenal, but 6-7 games is not enough to decide that a guy is either bad, in some cases, or great.
So with that being said, if you want to say Brock Purdy is plan A, I can get behind that. I can 100% get behind that. He showed enough. He did enough to earn that title of plan A as QB1. But there better be, even before the injury, a really good plan B, a really good plan B to fall back on, because years in a Super Bowl window are fleeting, man. And every day you're closer to the end of that window and you're wasting it. You're wasting an amazing roster right now that they've put together here by leaving the quarterback situation in flux. With the injury, it just makes it all that much more important,
right,
that you have a plan B, and that plan B is even better than maybe what you had in mind before this news about the injury and the setback now with the inflammation and delaying of the surgery.
Yeah, the positional importance is gigantic when you talk about this situation with the Niners. We're not talking cornerback or some other position that you could maybe find somebody and just slide them in. You can just easily replace that person with some kind of veteran who can kind of take you to the promised land or help you take you to the promised land. This is the most critical position, and I mentioned it yesterday. It's very fascinating to me that the Niners continue to be contenders, even though they haven't been able to figure out this position for like 5-6 years and running. And here we are again. And I would to me, if I'm the Niners, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, you're sitting there in the offices, you have to take almost way too much for granted to believe that Brock Purdy is your ride or die. You've got to hope that, number one, the 7-game sample size and what you saw in stretches was good enough and that it will translate to a full NFL season. Number two, you have to hope that he comes back fully healthy, ready to go at the beginning of the year. I know what Garofalo said. We just played the sound for you. We get it. He should be ready. He should be ready by the beginning of the season. What if he isn't? If he's not ready by the beginning of the season, then what happens? 2 or 3 games could mean the difference between you being the 1 seed, you making a deep run. So you have to take so much for granted by just rolling with Purdy into next year. And we don't know. We don't know how he's going to react to this injury and surgery. I mean, we didn't know that he'd have inflammation in the area. He was supposed to get surgery yesterday. Now that's been delayed. I'm not wishing ill will on the young man. He'd be a great story, as I said, all year long if he's able to complete this process, come back, lead this team, get to a Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, make the movie.
And quite honestly, Nick, not just a good story. What I saw from Brock Purdy, along with the numbers to back it up, I found to be really promising. I think he has a future in this league as a starting quarterback, and maybe even a pretty good one. But I can't say that for certain at this point after 6 games started. You know what I mean? I would have a plan B just in case what you saw was a fluke and a flash in the pan, and the league figures him out next year. Like I said, even if he was 100% healthy, the injury just it emphasizes that need for insurance at the quarterback position that much more than even it did before, given this roster and where it is and how much time you have left in this Super Bowl window.
And the injury, it's a weird thing because you never know how anybody's body is going to react to anything. You don't know. We can sit there and say this is the best scenario, this is the worst scenario. I went through back surgery when I was in my early 20s. They say, well, this is what could be best. This is how it could be really bad. They get you prepared for anything. When they went in and they did surgery on my back, they found all sorts of like bone shrapnel back there that were just crushing my nerves.
You're just a mess.
When they looked at my back and the MRIs and the CAT scans and all, they didn't see all the damage that was done until they cut me open and went in. There's a lot of different things that can happen. Again, I'm not wishing the worst for the guy. I hope he's okay and he is ready, but you have to prepare for the worst if you're the Niners. And if you're just going in saying, oh yeah, he's our guy no matter what, that's not truly preparing your organization for the worst case scenario.
And they even said once they do this surgery, whenever that might be, here goes my throat again. Whenever that might be, that once they get in there, Nick, just like you just talked about, what they find, depending on what they find, the surgery could be more extensive than what they've talked about to this point. So that could set the timeline back even further than now it has already been set back with this inflammation and delay for the surgery. It would be absolutely insane.
Irresponsible.
Irresponsible. Malpractice if the 49ers went into next year with Brock Purdy as their ride or die quarterback and no real solid plan B.
And the margin for error is so thin. It really is. And I know when you see a team get back to a deep run a couple of years in a row, you feel like this is going to perennially happen. And that's not always the case. The margin for error is incredibly thin. And if you go in with a question mark at quarterback, you're making that margin for error even thinner, which is really difficult in the NFL. We want your thoughts on Brock Purdy. Surgery has been delayed. They still anticipate that he will be ready for the NFL season in September. But what would you do? Is Brock Purdy your ride or die, Niners fans? We want to hear from you. Text line is 916-339-1140. The phone number, of course, phone lines are wide open for you, 1-800-920-1140. You can visit us on YouTube, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. We'll get to your reaction on Brock. Also coming up in 90 seconds, is the Kings rotation fully set heading to the post-All-Star break?
Cattles and Rock.
Sactown.
Says the Niners are good. We're good. We got Brock and Trey. No worries. Very optimistic of Tony Dog. So, by the way, have you ever noticed that our friend Tony is optimistic with the Niners, but not really much optimism about anything else walking God's green earth? The Niners, there's optimism. Everything else,
if I remember correctly, not a Kings fan, right?
Correct.
I'm guessing whoever he's an NBA fan of, or whatever NBA team he's a fan of, I should say, he's as optimistic about them as he is about the 49ers. Tony strikes me as one of those dudes, you know?
Where? You gonna go there?
I'm just saying.
If you're going to pick fights, I'm not trying to pick fights.
I'm not trying to pick fights either.
I'm making observations.
Some people see things through rose-colored glasses. That's not a terrible thing. I wish I had more of that ability.
Well,
you know
he just
what I mean?
gave
You might be a happier person.
He gave you the big smiling cheesy emoji, so maybe you're onto something.
See?
Maybe you're onto something. Let's jump to the Kings here as we get ready.
Homer is what I'm saying.
They're going to return tomorrow night, finally. I mean, I love the
Are you
NBA.
having basketball withdrawals like I am?
I always do.
I am too.
Yeah, once I get to like Monday night, I'm like, okay, tick-tock, tick-tock. What are we doing? And I understand why they've done this. They've extended the break.
Monday, you had the itches already for the NBA?
Monday night.
No, for me, it didn't happen until yesterday, but okay.
Because I kind of get used to, my nightly routine of watching a game. It's like if there's not a game, Monday night I can get through because I got pro wrestling. But I got pro wrestling actually, four out of the 5 nights.
Yeah, you can get your fix.
But yeah, I start feeling it like, when you're gone, like 4 or 5 days, I start to feel it a little bit. So
agreed.
Tomorrow night, thankfully, Kings back against the Blazers. Golden 1 should be a fun game. Dame Dalla off his 3-point contest win. Nothing from the buyout market. And we had warned you. I mean, there still could be something that happens. March 1st is the deadline. If you sign somebody post March 1st, that person cannot play in the postseason. So if you don't sign anybody by March 1st, you can still sign them, but it's more likely you're going to sign somebody younger to place in a roster spot that you think there may be a future in moving down the line.
Can't help you this year.
Buyout market for like urgency purposes, March 1st. So nothing from the buyouts yet. We've had a lot of buyouts happen already, and we've seen these guys move around the league. Kevin Love to Miami. Of course, we had Russell Westbrook going to the Clippers, Pat Bev to Chicago, et cetera, et cetera. Nothing really happening with the Kings, not even really any rumors about buyouts for the Kings that I have seen. And I want to go back to when we had Mike Brown on the show pre-All-Star break, and I think it was you, Ramie, who asked him about the team rotation. And here's what Coach had to say.
No, I feel pretty good about the group of 8, 9 players. But having said that, I think we can go, a little bit deeper than, 8, 9 players at times. And that's why it's been good, whenever it seems like we've had an injury or something like that, or even I hadn't called a guy's number in 6 or 7 games, and I just throw them out there. The way that those guys have stepped up and performed has been at an extremely high level, and that's what you need with any good team.
We have 25 games left to this regular season. As we get ready to return tomorrow night, Ramie, what is your rotation for this team?
I mean, we know Trey Lyles is a big part of the rotation at the 4, sometimes small ball 5.
Yeah.
Maybe even a swing guy on the 3 if you want to go big. We know Malik Monk can come in and play 1 or 2, maybe a little 3. You got that. After that, Nick, I don't really know. You're going to bring Davion Mitchell in and he's going to give you some good defense, but we've talked exhaustively about Davion Mitchell and his offensive woes.
Let's start with the top 5. Are you okay with the top 5?
Top 5 I'm good with.
Okay.
Yeah. They're going to get hot. They're going to get cold. They're a 3-point shooting team. That's going to happen.
Because I know some people say you could mess around and maybe take Herter and put him on the bench and put Monk out there with Fox.
I've thrown that around. But and if they tried that, I'd be curious to see what that looks like. If you tried it for a game or 2 and see if that works, I'd be okay with that. But if not, I like the starting 5.
Yeah. I think there's an issue of taking Monk and putting him into the starting lineup. Number one, it's not like this bench is giving you consistency when it comes to scoring. And you could argue and say, well, you're putting Kevin Herter on the bench. Kevin's been off and on. So I don't think that solves your bench issue. Now, you might say you improve shooting-wise by replacing Herter in the starting lineup for the bench side of things,
sure.
Not so much the starting 5 side of things. But the biggest issue I would have with moving Monk,
I think I know where you're going.
You think you need a shot creator on that bench. You need somebody where okay, shot clock's down to 5. Somebody's got to do something. And, with Davion's role being so funky and clunky this year, I just think Monk is that guy. He can go ISO. It's not the prettiest basketball, but if you need somebody to get a bucket, Monk is that guy more than Herter. Monk is more the ISO one-on-one. I can pull something out of the bag to give you a bucket. I think you need that still desperately on this bench.
I also think this is where I thought you were going is that Malik Monk seems to be at his best with the ball in his hands. That's the problem with the fit between him and Davion Mitchell, and why Davion Mitchell can't really find a groove or a rhythm offensively, because he doesn't have the ball in his hands, because he's out there pretty often with Malik Monk or De'Aaron Fox at times if they go small. So I think you run into the same problem where he's either going to take away from De'Aaron Fox and even Sabonis, because so much of the offense runs through him, and he needs the ball in his hands so often. You're either going to take something away from those two guys, or, and this is probably more likely because those two guys are so good, you're not going to get the full effect of Malik Monk because he's not going to have the ball in his hands enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You run into the same chemistry problems in the starting lineup in terms of how much ball there is to go around that you have on the bench, and the reason why Davion Mitchell is probably struggling.
Yeah, and if you're putting Monk in the starting lineup, you're also banking on Davion. And, I said last week, and I stand by this.
Yeah.
I've given up hope for Davion to make a significant impact offensively on this team this year. I'm not giving up on Davion, the basketball player. I'm not giving up on him, the rest of his career, or even that he could help this team at some point down the road. But this year, this fit just doesn't seem right. And I don't know what they can do to fix that. But for now, I don't have enough belief in Davion to hand him the keys to the second unit and say, okay, now you're going to be an offensive driving force. Now you're going to find open shots for Herter and company. I just can't do that. And that brings me to a very interesting scenario. If Davion continues to struggle, Ramie, I am not against playing TD more. I'm not against sitting Davion.
I'm not against that either.
I know the resume. I know the pedigree. I know that he was Monty's, first-round pick 2 years ago. I understand all of that. And I know it's very tough to sit a guy who was a lottery pick. But if he's not helping this team, now defensively, that's the one thing, right?
Yeah.
Defensively, it'll be very difficult to replace Davion with TD. But at a certain point, if Davion is just kind of lost out there, you might start giving up a little bit more minutes to TD, still play Davion, but maybe Davion, instead of 15 minutes a night, he slides back to 8 to 10 minutes until he kind of figures it out.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that. And I also think that you can go based on matchups and need. You know what I mean? When you need defense and you need somebody to come off the bench and lock it down and hold on to a lead, you can go to Davion Mitchell. When you need some scoring and you need some offense and you find yourself in a back and forth or a close game, you bring out Terrence Davis, because I do think that while Terrence Davis has been very inconsistent himself offensively off the bench, he's shown more offensively than Davion Mitchell has. And you're going to need somebody to give you a little more punch and scoring off the bench if they're not going to go and get somebody off the buyout market.
One more thing I would do, and I don't know if this is going to be the case or not, but one more thing I would try Rashawn Holmes at least one more time. I would run him out there, and I would try to look when he's out there, play some pick and roll, couple of possessions. There's no reason why you have to stay with your offense, just your offense only. You can run some pick and roll every once in a while to vary it up and get something out of Holmes, because I said this at the beginning with Met 2 and Lyles playing small ball 5. I don't think you're going to be able to survive doing that. If you're not going to get somebody from the buyout market, try Holmes at least one more time. Give him 10, 15 minutes off the bench for the first couple of games here. See if you can set something, see if you can kind of reset his engine and get him going. Because if you did have Holmes who was being at least somewhat productive, that helps Domas in the end. So I would also try. I'm not telling you it's the great panacea. I'm not telling you it's going to solve all the problems, but I would give Holmes at least one more shot. And if he fails, then he fails. And I move forward and I say, okay, man, we had 25 games left. I gave you a couple of games post All-Star break to figure this thing out. You're just not a fit. You don't help us enough. You're going to be on the bench the rest of the year.
Tough to say. I mean, Davion Mitchell, by all indications, good teammate and everything else, and good dude. But you have to make tough decisions that you sometimes don't like making when you find yourself in a playoff hunt. And I think that might be something that they'd have to consider, Nick.
Ryan Sactown, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Give us a thumbs up, please. We appreciate you trying to grow this channel, 6A to 6P, live and local here on Sactown Sports. Ryan in Sactown says, Keegan to the bench, start Trey Lyles.
Nah, I like Keegan in the starting lineup.
Yeah. I think Keegan gives you much more than Lyles.
Yeah.
I think Lyles has done good. And that's the other part of it, too, when we talk about the bench and the lack of consistency and scoring and all of that. Lyles has been that boost when Monk's been down. So when Monk's having a tough night, the only other guy, Terrence Davis gives you spurts from time to time, but Lyles has been the most consistent guy off this bench aside from Monk. And Monk, as we know, he's had his ups and downs as well.
We didn't know which team he was playing for.
Yes, that would be one of those downs. Coach Jay Triano reminding us. Definitely one of the downs. Is the NBA headed for a lockout? We'll have that and more with Jeff Zilgit coming up next.
Cattles
And
Sactown Sports.
All right, let's get to the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Jeff Zilgett from USA Today joins us here on Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Jeff, let's start with the All-Star game since everybody's been talking about it the last few days. I know most have criticized the game. What were your thoughts on Sunday night?
Oh, boy, I'm not going to be as critical. I'm rather ambivalent, only because I understand this to be an exhibition. I'm not expecting Game 7 of a playoff series, that kind of atmosphere. I understand the people want to see a little bit more competitiveness, but I tend to look at All-Star Weekend in general as a celebration of the game, understanding that, we're not going to see the effort that teams put in the defense in the regular season, a playoff game. And also, let's just understand that all-star games across all sports have changed over the past few decades. And mostly in that we get to see these guys just about any night of the week we want on our app, in highlights, on TV. And so, it's not as big of a deal back in the old days where maybe, we didn't see Marcus Johnson of the Milwaukee Bucks very often. And we only saw Dr. J on Sunday afternoons on, TV, national TV. We didn't have games on Friday or every night of the week for that matter. And so I just think they've evolved a little bit. I'm not all that bothered by what happened in the All-Star game.
I tend to agree with you. For those you mentioned, it could be made more competitive, but I said yesterday, well, it could be more competitive, I guess is the way I should word it. But I don't know that it can, Jeff. Do you have any ideas on how you could make the game more competitive?
Look, I've seen people suggest, like baseball has done, give home court advantage or home field in baseball's case to the winning team. But this is collectively bargained. Baseball agreed to it. I'm not sure NBA owners and their executives who, run basketball ops want to go to a scenario where the winner of this game in that conference is getting home court advantage in the NBA Finals. You play 82 games, and I necessarily don't like baseball. You establish a best record for 162 games. That should mean something rather than this just one game. I've seen people trot out, expand the rosters to 20, have 5 guys play each quarter, and try to figure out a way that, that's competitive for those 5 guys playing their set of 12 minutes, and maybe that changes it. But I'll be honest, of the 3 of the last 4 All-Star games, there has been some competitiveness, at least in the fourth quarter, and that's what we didn't see in this game. The Team Giannis had such a big lead heading into the fourth quarter, so they do the targeted score. The way they were playing defense, you knew the game would end quickly, and then it sort of devolved into Giannis's team trying to chuck those half-court threes a little bit too much at the end of the game. And so I think you combine those things, you see why people were a little flustered. But again, I sort of understand the weekend for what it is.
Jeff Zilgett is with us from USA Today. Jeff, you recently wrote on the idea of a lockout. I know Charles Barkley came out and said pretty much it's a fait accompli. Should fans be concerned?
I don't think they should be concerned about a lockout. This is a much different scenario than we had over a decade ago in 2011 when finances were the big issue. 23 of 32 teams, the NBA said, were losing money. We're not having that scenario right now.
Right.
And it's also real difficult when you see these valuations. Matt Ishbia just bought the Phoenix Suns on a 57% of the team on a $4 billion valuation. The owner, one of the owners of the Milwaukee Bucks, is looking to sell. No one's struggling financially. If you even go back a decade ago when the salary cap for each team was about $60 million, now we've doubled that in a decade where the salary cap is $120 million. I'll pull out the cliche, the golden goose no one wants to kill in this situation. So there's nothing at stake financially. Are there some tweaks to the game that need to be resolved? Does the league want to curb some of the luxury tax spending that just a few teams do? Yes. Golden State, Brooklyn, the Los Angeles Clippers, do they want to cut down those luxury taxes a little bit? Yes. Are there mechanisms they're exploring? Are they talking about the age eligibility rule? And another hot topic was load management. Are they addressing those ideas? Both sides. I went to both press conferences, Adam Silver and the Players Union, and they would like to get at least the framework of a deal done by the end of March. And when they're already talking about having a framework done or trying to get a framework done, this is much different than 2011. I don't anticipate a lockout. It would be a bad situation for the NBA if that was the case. And we're starting to see more pro sports realize if there's a lockout, there's no way you can lose games. And that's the only reason, or the only time a lockout really becomes important is when games are being trimmed off the schedule.
You brought up the issue of load management, and I feel like I'm asking you the same question about the All-Star game when it comes to load management. I think everybody looks at it and goes, yeah, that could be better. That doesn't seem like the greatest, but I don't know that there are any great solutions to fix that, Jeff.
There are a lot of issues with load management, and it's just not one. So I was able to meet and talk with executives over the weekend. They have sports science staffs telling them that this guy shouldn't play. And yet the guy, sometimes in the players union and former players say it's never the player who wants to sit out in general. It's the team sports science staff saying that they should take that night off, that they've had too much load. They've put too many minutes under their legs. They need a break. But also, then it starts to become, maybe it gets in, a little mentally. It's like, well, hey, I played the last 7 games at 38 minutes a game. I don't want to be injured in the next game. And so I think they're trying to work through all these things. We didn't have the science that we had when Karl Malone was playing 81, 82 games a year in, year out. But the other thing is, look, do we want to see Steph Curry? Yes, but I think the idea that we can pinpoint when a guy is going to get hurt is also a fallacy. We could give Steph Curry the night off, and then he could get injured the next night as well. And so, again, I think they're trying to incentivize it. They need to be careful with how they incentivize it financially to make sure they're well within the realm of collective bargaining and salary cap issues. But maybe tie, and this is what they're talking about, tying season-ending awards to the amount of games played. Do you need to play 75 to 80% of games in a season to be eligible for MVP, all NBA, all defense? Those are things that they're going to try to figure out.
Jeff Zilgett, thanks a lot. We appreciate your time. Let's do this again soon.
That's perfect. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. There goes Jeff from USA Today. He was on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. I love the idea, Ramie, of tying these awards to games played. Love it. Because here's the thing. People might say, well, do guys really care about, all NBA, blah, blah, blah. Not necessarily do all players believe, but here's what players definitely care about. The incentives in their contracts that you make
cash money
from those accolades. So, yes, they would care. And I do think most guys likely care for the accolades as well because, it's a way to keep track of where you are in the game, where you stack up with the rest of the league, right? But I think it's a great idea, and it should have been done a long time ago. You have to, when you talk about points, total points, instead of points per game, also games played, whatever you want to do to cook up that kind of scenario, I'm all for.
I don't remember the exact figure, but it was Joel Embiid a few years ago who most people thought should have been all NBA, and he wasn't. And it cost him a significant chunk of change. I forgot what the escalator was in his clause, but it cost him a significant amount of money. So if not for their pride and ego and wanting to fill up the trophy shelf, Nick, you're absolutely right. It affects guys' money, getting those honors, getting those awards over the course of a season. So I think if you tied awards to it might incentivize guys to play a little bit more. But like Jeff said, a lot of times it's not even up to these guys.
Right.
It's the team and the medical staff.
And the money part of it too, just to give you an example, like I think it's Jaylen Brown, if he makes an all NBA team this year, he's going to be able to sign for like tens of millions of dollars more with the Celtics.
Remember AD had that issue. Yeah. He couldn't get the birds right. To 200.
Tatum made all NBA last year, and he ended up being able to like once you get to that, it's there's a mechanism in the contract that it sets off that your next deal, you get that super max. So all those things play a role into that. So I do think that's a fantastic way. Big deal or no big deal coming up.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown. National pundits would tell you it's huge. Now it's our turn to tell you.
Big deal or no big deal?
On Cattles and Ramie.
All right, so we just got off the phone with Jeff Zilgett from USA Today. Talked about the All-Star game a little bit. His thoughts on the game, whether or not the game can be saved or fixed, whichever term you want to use. There's been a lot of criticism about the All-Star game out there, nationally, locally. I don't know how many people, actually enjoyed that game. I'm not sure. We will get into how many people actually watched the game in a minute. But first, here was J.J. Redick on his podcast, The Old Man and the Three, talking about the All-Star game and whether it can be helped.
First of all, the All-Star game itself. I tend to agree with what Jaylen Brown said after the game, which is that was not basketball. That was a glorified layup line. I tend to agree with Michael Malone, who said that was the worst basketball game ever played. Maybe a little harsh, but I tend to agree with it. I feel for the fans who want to see a show, but also want to see guys compete. I'm not sure in its current form that All-Star Weekend is set up to have a competitive game.
All right, so Austin Karp, Ramie, from Sports Business Journal, he tweeted out on the ratings today, NBA All-Star Game may need a Pro Bowl-style revamp. 4.6 million viewers on TNT/TBS, easily, all in caps, the least watched NBA All-Star Game on record. Down around 27% from 2022, which, by the way, last year's All-Star Game had Winter Olympic competition. This year's didn't.
Right.
The prior low, if you're wondering, was 5.9 million in 2021. Ramie, the NBA All-Star ratings being so bad this year, big deal or no big deal?
To me, no big deal. But to the league, I think it's probably a big deal, Nick. That means money.
Yep.
That means money. How many people watch determines how much they can charge for advertising on this thing. And you can be damn sure that, like, who said it needed a Pro Bowl style revamp?
Austin Karp.
Austin, whoever the brain trust or the creative minds of the NBA are sitting in a room today with that number and going, how do we fix this?
Yeah.
How do we make this better? We're losing money here. We can't charge as much for advertising on the All-Star game next year as we did this year. I don't know how the contract works. Maybe it's already set for a few years. But whatever the case may be, lower ratings at the end of the day, somewhere down the line, means less money.
Yes.
So while I don't care, I barely watched the game on Sunday. Had it on, I DVR'd it. While it was on, I was mostly on Twitter and texting with friends because it was a truly, truly terrible basketball game with a few things that made me lift my head and go, oh, that was cool. So I don't care, Nick, but it is a big deal for the NBA. Not for me, not for you, but for the NBA, it's a big deal.
Yeah, I went out to the casino on Sunday night. I came back to the hotel room and watched the game off the DVR. Much like you, just kind of not really.
While you were out of town, while you were still on vacation, you DVR'd it and watched it?
Yeah, just if I wanted to watch something late, Sunday night, wasn't a whole lot to do when I knew I was getting up and driving home the next day. But I think you hit the nail on the head for the league. Sponsors and ads, but also relevancy. Like, you want to stay relevant when you take this long of a break. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. I can't wait for basketball to come back tomorrow night. And you would like to give your fans something to enjoy beyond the three-point contest and slam dunk contest, if you enjoy those. You want to stay relevant. You want the league to be covered. You want eyeballs. Any way you can get eyeballs onto your product is good. And when you have an all-star game during a long split between the action, you would like to have as many eyeballs as possible. So I think the relevancy of the event, yes, it's important to the NBA. As far as, why the game isn't great and, the challenges that we may overlook, Ramie, as fans of the game, the schedule that these guys have to go through. And Redick, on his podcast, again, The Old Man and the Three, he talked about how the schedule works for a lot of these players, NBA All-Star Weekend.
It was nonstop all day long. You obviously have appearances There's community events that every player that participates in All-Star Weekend has to do, some sort of NBA Cares event. So you're traveling all around. You're constantly moving from one venue to another. How All-Star Weekend is set up, how the day of the game is set up, how the pregame is set up. I mean, these guys I was watching the pregame show. There's guys out there doing their shooting 2 hours before tip-off. I don't know of a single All-Star that does that. Most guys shoot 60 on the clock. Luka comes out at 50 on the clock. Joel comes out at 50 on the clock. The game preparation to get yourself in a place to compete does not exist at All-Star Weekend. It doesn't exist.
Interesting because Reddick, he brought up Post Malone and the fact that you had like a Post Malone concert before the game. And
I fast-forwarded right through that.
Here's the decision that I think needs to be made, okay? You either make this purely, strictly entertainment, not make a mockery of the game, but lean into the entertainment even stronger. Like I said yesterday.
Make it like Rock and Jock.
Right.
Put the 50-point shot at half court or whatever it is.
Go all in on the entertainment factor, or try to make it competitive in any kind of way that you can dream of. I mean, Patrick Donaldson said East versus West was better because the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, it would start to get competitive, for the conference win and stuff like that. But for me, I think the league should really it feels like they're trying to pull a half measure. No half measures. Like if you're going to go entertainment, if you're going to do the draft before the game, if you're going to do the Post Malone concert, if you're going to have like an hour and a half before the game tips off, if you have these guys, like Reddick said, shooting 2 hours before the game to warm up, just lean all the way in on the entertainment and just have fun with it. And that way fans, I think you're almost unreasonable if you're expecting a competitive All-Star game at this point.
Yeah, who is expecting that?
Say if you are. Well, at least those fans that are expecting something like that, the expectations are now reasonable because you're admitting to the world, this is for entertainment. This is not going to be a very competitive game. We're going to do the rock and jock thing if that's what you do. Just lean in all the way. No more half measures.
No. I'm 100% with you. I also think, Nick, it probably didn't help that your two biggest stars and best players, the captains of the teams, Giannis played the first 2 minutes and
played one play
and then
dunked and left,
bowed out because of the wrist injury, and LeBron didn't come back in the second half. I don't think that helps your case at all in terms of.
And Jokic wanted nothing to do with that.
Jokic didn't really want to play, so I don't think that helped at all. I also think and maybe Victor Wembanyama is it. I think a new superstar would bring a lot of eyes to this game. If we're just talking about pure numbers and pure ratings, LeBron has been the headlining act for how many years now? And I think, not to say people are done with LeBron or anything like that, but it's not new. You know what I mean? And I think a new face, a new superstar might bring some new eyes to this game, or more eyes to this game.
So I'd say I'd agree with you, Ramie. Big deal for the NBA. Not so big of a deal for really anybody else.
I don't care.
No.
It cost me nothing.
So we'll see what they try to do. I imagine they will react to this.
Yes.
They will do something. I don't think Adam Silver's just going to sit back and look at these ratings and go, we good. How can the Kings be even better starting tomorrow night? We'll talk about that next.
Cattles and Ramie.
Last night, a setback seeped out of 49ers camp regarding Brock Purdy. Scheduled to undergo a surgery on his torn UCL this week, the 49ers quarterback will now have to postpone the operation due to ongoing inflammation and swelling in his right elbow. Expected reevaluation is scheduled for early March with the hopes that he will be good to go for August. In the wake of firing head coach Nate McMillan, the Atlanta Hawks are beginning the process of acquiring a new head coach, and some roads lead to Sacramento. According to The Athletic's Shams Charania, the Hawks are expected to target Kings associate head coach Jordi Fernandez as one of the candidates for the esteemed position. Fernandez is currently in his first season with the Kings as Mike Brown's #1 assistant on a coaching staff that has helped design a winning culture in Sacramento. Speaking of the Kings, the fellas are finally back in action tomorrow night at Golden One Center to take on Dame Lillard and his Rip City partners. You can catch all the action right here on Sactown Sports, beginning with game night after Cattles and Ramie. I'm Simone. Those are your headlines. Now back to Cattles and Ramie.
With you 1 mile at a time during the afternoon drive. Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Saw a tweet from friend Brennan Nunez yesterday on the Kings. And the tweet read, of course, Brennan, been on the show before. If the Kings continue at their current 56.1% win percentage, they would end the season at 46-36, Ramie. Here is where that would have placed them in the West previously. Again, if they win 56% of the remaining 25 games, they would finish 46-36. They would have finished last year tied for 7th playing. 2021, 8th. 2019-2020, 8th. 2018-2019, 9th. 2017-2018, tied for 9th. So Nunez ended up tweeting, the best teams lock in post All-Star break, and Sacramento will need to do the same. Ramie, I know you saw this tweet as well, and you immediately came up with a question.
Well, it just rattled around. I was like, that one kind of took me off guard. Brendan broke my brain a little bit with that one. And it rattled around in there for a little bit. And I was like, so they got to be even better? Like that was hard for me to let set in because it's seemed like this has been pretty damn good and almost as good as it can get when you talk about the Sacramento Kings to this point at the All-Star break. But it sounds like they're going to have to be even better. And the first question I had was, how are they going to be better with no tweaks to the roster at the All-Star break, no smoke in terms of like some kind of story on a major buyout candidate? Right. I haven't seen anything there. And Nick, we've talked about, and I know we'll dive into it a little deeper tomorrow, but the strength of schedule and difficulty of the schedule from here on out post All-Star break, it gets a little tougher in terms of where they're playing, who they're playing. How is this team going to get better, which they apparently will need to be if they're going to stay in the top half of the Western Conference?
It starts on the defensive end, man. Like that's the easiest way for this team to improve its play, is to improve defensively. Somehow, some way. Couldn't care less how you do it. You jumble up the rotations. You come up with some new sneaky little plan that catches the NBA by surprise. Maybe the guys get better sleep. I don't know what you do, but whatever you do, you've got to get better defensively. 22nd in the NBA in defensive rating, Ramie. There's only 25 games left. Coach Brown was hired, and one of the first things we discussed, one of the tippity-top things on his resume is defensive coach. Mm-hmm. He was supposed to make this team much better defensively. If I remember correctly, I think the Kings were like 27th last year in defensive rating. They're 22nd right now. They've improved, but they've improved slightly if you go off of that statistic. So to me, the quickest path for this team to be better for the final 25 games is to play a better defense. And that's staying in front of your man. Kevin Huerter, stay in front of your man. Keegan, stay in front of your man. HB. I think Foxy's done a pretty decent job of the pickup point and he's done a pretty decent job of staying in front of his guy. But the rest of this defense, man, it's like the guys are just cooking on the perimeter, just rolling right on through into the lane.
Yeah, they're giving him a free pass to the lane way too often.
8 biscuits.
But I said before, Nick, give me top 15 defense. Not that they're going to finish in the top half of the league, but give me top 15 defense from here on out, and I think the Kings will be pretty good. And I guess it goes hand in hand, my answer to that question that my brain came up with after it got broken and rattled around for a little bit. It starts for me, and this includes their defense, with the two guys that just represented them in the All-Star game, with Domas and Fox. I think they need to be even better than what they have been in the first half. And that might sound unfair to put those types of expectations on those two guys, given how good they've been to this point and probably exceeding a lot of our expectations to this point. But the reason, and Brendan says in there, most of the best teams in the NBA, I'm paraphrasing now, I don't have the tweet right in front of me, lock in post All-Star break. The reason they're able to do that is because of the guys that lead the charge, is because of their premier marquee superstar players. They lock in. Yep. Big dogs eat after the All-Star break and when it's time to make that push.
Right.
So I think it's Domas and it's Fox taking their game to another level, and that right, what's the saying? Rising tide lifts all ships. I think that makes everyone around them even better and raises the level of play, including what you're talking about, Nick, when you talk about the defense. Mike Brown has said a number of times this year he's been pleasantly surprised, as I've been, with the improvement that De'Aaron Fox has shown defensively. And I think he kind of, not that he's going to be their best defensive player, but guys see the energy and the effort on that side of the court from that guy. That sets the example. That leads the way, and then you'll see everybody put a little bit more energy and a little bit more effort into the defensive side of the court and across the entire game and all up and down the court.
Here's something else you can do if you're the Kings. Take care of the basketball. And I did some research, dove into the numbers a little bit, Ramie, for you.
Oh, I'd like to solve the puzzle.
And you look at the last 5 losses, last 5 wins, okay? Last 5 wins for the Kings before the All-Star break. They turn the ball over 9.5 times a game. Less than 10 turnovers a game in their last 5 wins. How many turnovers a game do you think they've had in their last 5 losses pre-All-Star break?
I'm going to say at least 15.
You nailed it.
Really?
Yeah, it's like you stole my notes.
I swear, I have not seen that number anywhere.
Man, that's easy.
15 turnovers a game.
Really?
So in their last 5 losses pre-All-Star break, 15 turnovers a game. And in their last 5 wins pre-All-Star break, under 10 turnovers a game. You're gifting 5 extra possessions right off the bat to the other team. So you're already dealing with some tough defense and stretches, right? You're already the 22nd team in defensive rating right now. And then you're giving the team extra possessions.
Yeah,
and I saw Kevin Huerter talk about it today. And, and I also think HB talked about it. Like turnovers, they're really hurting us. And they're right. You're turning the ball over, and that means transition points. You already have a struggle in consistently stopping or limiting offenses in the half court defensively. Now you're going to give up 15 turnovers? Especially if they're live ball turnovers. And Katie always mentions this, and she's very smart to do so. Live ball turnovers versus dead ball turnovers. Live ball turnovers turn into fast break points. They turn into transition. And if you're giving up 60, 70 points in the paint, and you're not protecting, right, the basketball, and you're giving up transition points, now those points, they just stack up where a team doesn't have to shoot great to beat you because they're getting easy buckets. They're getting layups. They're getting dunks. And the other part of it, Ramie, to go along with the turnovers and stuff, second chance points, the glass. Like, all these things add up. If you want to know why you give up 100-plus points against the Rockets, Jalen Green had an out-of-body experience in the second game. Yes, they shot better than you anticipated in spurts during those 2 games. But the reason why you're giving up a lot of those points is, A, half-court defensive breakdowns because your on-ball defense has been atrocious for the most part. B, you don't have a big man that can protect the basket consistently without fouling. That hurts because when you break the initial defensive point and you get in the paint, now you got guys finishing all day, every day.
Right.
Like it's no big, like they're having a sandwich.
Or Domas racking up fouls.
Right.
He's trying to do too much.
Which sends him to the free throw line.
Right.
And then if you do come up with a stop in the half court, you're having issues at times with defensive rebounding, which is leading to offensive rebounds of the opposition, which leads to second chance points. And then on top of that, you're turning the basketball over in your losses. So you're just giving the opposition free points in transition. And so if you go against the Kings right now, you don't have to shoot 40% from three. You don't have to shoot 55, 60% from the field. Now, we've seen that happen several times because of all the things I just mentioned, but the pressure on your offensive execution is way down at the bottom if you're walking in playing against the Kings right now.
Yeah, for sure. No doubt about it. They're giving teams way too many second chances and extra possessions between the offensive rebounds they're letting teams get and, as you said, being a little sloppy with the ball. And when your defense ain't great, extra possessions are going to add up to a lot of extra points. It would be nice to see Keegan Murray take that next step here in his development.
Yeah.
And either take the number 3 role on this team or start to sniff around, and maybe he's the number 3 one night. Harrison Barnes is the number 3 one night. I'd like to see, because I've been saying all season long, Nick, when Keegan Murray takes that next step and and De'Aaron Fox reiterated this. Mike Brown had said earlier in the season, when you have 3 guys in their prime playing at an all-star level, that's when you enter the conversation of being a contender. And De'Aaron Fox, he told Keegan Murray, hey, either you're going to be the number 3 guy or somebody else is. And that's when this thing is really going to take off and go to another level. So that would go a long way to finishing out the season strong and holding on to one of these spots in the top half of the Western Conference. They're going to have to be even better than they were pre-All-Star break.
One last thing I would say, they need to get back to shooting the ball consistently. Way too many ebbs and flows with a lot of these guys. De'Aaron Fox has been awful from 3 since the first month of the season or so. He's been great in pretty much everything else. But his shooting from beyond, 3 it's been an issue. Kevin Huerter has been all over the joint. Malik Monk has been all over the place. Keegan's been mostly good since his struggle in November. He did have that 5 or 6 game stretch when he shot like 20% from 3. But other than that, he's been good. Malik Monk has been a roller coaster. Like, they have a lot of guys that have been up and down, up and down, up and down from 3. If they could shoot consistently, if they could shoot at a better rate, and they've been top 5 or 6 in the NBA when it comes to shooting threes, percentage-wise, as far as how many they take and how many they've made. But they could be even better if they got more consistent. And that's when you talk about, man, offense. Woo! Like, if your consistency shooting-wise gets better, then your offense gets better, and then that's
I feel
a
like
really difficult team.
They're due for a heater. I've been saying that. Law of averages says they're due for a heater.
Hey, Katie kept telling me before the All-Star break, it was all about legs. They better come out shooting like 60% from 3 the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
Or I got a bone to pick with Katie Christensen. It wasn't legs. Every time, legs. Okay, well, they've rested now for a full week.
Do you believe the old myth that when shots are hitting the front of the rim, those are tired legs? Or you think that's just an old basketball?
Sure. Might as well run with it.
Sure, why not?
I don't have any evidence against it, so.
I guess.
By the way, Kappa Casino, conveniently located on 411 North 16th Street in downtown Sacramento. How can the Kings get better? Where do you want to see the Kings get better post-All-Star break? 916-339-1140 is the text line. Phone lines are wide open for you, 1-800-920-1140. You can also check us out, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. If you were the Niners, aside from your Kings reaction, if you were the Niners, what would you do with Trey Lance? Our answer's in 90 seconds.
Cattles and Ramie. Your afternoon home for Kings talk and more.
This is Cattles and Ramie
on Sactown Sports.
I love when ESPN is dealing with like a slow time. Today's a slow time. Developing story. Derek Carr visits with the Saints and Jets. He
already visited with them both.
He visited the Saints like 2 weeks ago.
It's not developing anymore. At least that's not a development in the
So I don't appreciate your tone either.
The visits have been fully developed.
Yes.
They're done. By the way, I think it's time we put Simone to the test here.
I haven't heard any abbreviations in her updates today.
We might have got to her. We might have got to her.
Yep.
Really?
No.
She thought about it overnight. She was like,
He stopped you? He changed you, Simone?
No, I'm going to have some obnoxious, fun facts tomorrow. I'm going to slice in at some point. So
appreciate that.
I'm not going to be here on Friday. So you guys just have to think about, everything you've criticized about me and how much you're going to miss me. So.
Well, all of a sudden you work 4-day weeks, so I don't know what's going on.
I will be down in Los Angeles watching the Sacramento Kings take on the Clippers.
Oh.
So
look at that.
That's that. Yeah.
How many vacation days you have?
I have a lot. I have a lot.
You just joined the show.
You just took a vacation.
Yeah, you were
Excuse
just
me.
gone.
Yeah,
exactly.
but
I was here holding it down with Jay and all of our wonderful guest hosts.
I've been doing the show for like 13, 14 months.
True
You've
that.
been on the air 1 month. You're taking Fridays off.
Oh my
For good
God.
reason. She's on assignment watching
Yep.
the Kings and the
Boots
Clippers.
on the ground, all for you guys.
Well, we wanted to have Simone be the messenger for us when it comes to YouTube likes, because she seems to be very well loved amongst the people
on the YouTube.
So, Simone, would you like to start with the first plea for YouTube likes?
Absolutely. YouTube, if you're hearing me right now, please hit that thumbs up. It's all for the algorithm.
We'll see if that works.
That was a plea. That was
Surprise-
a bad plea.
Up top.
I'm surprised she said algorithm and not algo or something ridiculous.
Algo for the
Rhythm.
algo.
Algorithm for the riz.
Algo worked.
Do it for the.
You know what? Algo works.
do it
I
for the
like
algo.
it. I kind of like it.
Do it for the algo.
I liked
no,
it.
Stop.
I said
All
go
right,
with
so
it. Go with Algo.
We'll see if this works. TCG is all in. He gave you about 75 thumbs up. So
Thank
we'll
you,
see if this works.
TCG. Woo!
We'll see if the Simone magic works on the YouTube channel. I think people are tired of hearing me sit there and say, please thank us and give us the like.
The content is free. All we ask is for one of these right here.
That's it.
Look at that.
And that is the thumb.
It's a
You
thumb.
have.
For those of you in the listening.
Let's get back to the Niners for a few minutes here, Ramie. The Brock Purdy surgery, we talked about it to start the show, has been delayed, at least until March. There was some inflammation. They still believe that Brock is going to be ready for 2023, according to Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network. And that leads us to Trey Lance. What's going to happen with Lance? If you were the Niners, what would you do with Lance? Here was Trey talking about the Niners organization on Radio Row.
Everyone saw what Brock. Brock doesn't just come in and play that well, and I just get handed something out of the blue, and I don't expect that or want that. But I truly believe, I just want an opportunity to compete. That's all I wanted going into this offseason.
So that was Lance with Rich Eisen saying, I just want to compete. I just want a shot. Just give me a shot. I don't want to go anywhere. Just give me a shot. And this season is critical for Trey Lance, and Burt Breer of SI dove into that on 95.7 The Game.
I think really as much as anything else, this is a critical year for Trey because they got to make a decision on his fifth-year option after this year. And what history tells us is if you get past that point, you get past year 3 and the fifth-year option hasn't been picked up, an extension hasn't been done, generally those guys are on their last legs with the teams that they're with. So, I think this is a critical year because of where he is in his contract. And I think this is a critical year in that if he doesn't deliver, if Brock doesn't deliver, then they have to look at other options outside the organization because of how good their roster is.
You got to pick up that 50-year option after the third season is done, and the money jumps up exponentially if you do that if you're the Niners. So this is a very, very critical year for Trey Lance. I ask you, Ramie, what would you do if you were the Niners with Trey Lance?
Well, can I flip the question on you, Nick?
Sure, why not?
I'm going to I would like to flip the because I remember when we were having the conversation and Trey Lance was the presumed starter.
Yes.
And you weren't the only one. I'm just asking you as one of the people who was saying this. With everything attached to Jimmy Garoppolo, there was the notion that you have to trade Jimmy Garoppolo for the sake of Trey Lance. and his development, you can't have Jimmy Garoppolo standing there looking over his shoulder. That's not a good working environment for a guy you're trying to develop into your number one quarterback. I know he doesn't have the track record of a Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of the wins, took that team to an NFC championship and to a Super Bowl prior, but Trey Lance certainly he has the high draft pick, the potential, all the promise that the 49ers sold to people. So there will still be people out there. The second that Brock Purdy struggles, go to Trey Lance. Let's see what Trey Lance has. The same sort of what's the word that I'm looking for? Chemistry that you had between Lance and Garoppolo. That as soon as Lance struggled, there would be the Jimmy G people out there going, got to go to Jimmy G. We've seen enough of Trey Lance. Do you have to trade Trey Lance if you're going with Brock Purdy because I didn't agree with that note. I understand it, but my pushback on that was always, if a guy is cut out of the right cloth to be a starting NFL quarterback and a good one at that, a little competition, a little pressure shouldn't stop him or get in his way. If anything, it should just light the fire and push him to be that much better. If Brock Purdy is your, as we put it in hour one of the show, ride or die guy, do you have to trade Trey Lance so he doesn't have Lance looking over his shoulder and people screaming for Trey Lance every time Brock Purdy throws an interception?
No, because I think the analogy is so different to me, because Jimmy G was not only a status thing, it was a money thing, it was a history thing, it was a relationship thing between he and Shanahan. And as we found out, that relationship soured by the NFC Championship game. There was a lot more behind that, and as I talked about Jimmy G throughout the offseason and all that stuff, like, everybody knows I'm not the biggest believer in Garoppolo, but I mean, I believe less in Brock Purdy right now because he's played less. He's played 7 games or whatever. So I don't think Brock Purdy has earned the right to just be the guy and say, oh no, we talked. Work yourself out, right? But that's the point. I mean, if you're
the 49ers and you are in a place where you're like, no, Brock Purdy is our guy, are you thinking we have to trade Lance to take that pressure off him?
I don't think so, because I don't think Niners fans are like pining for Trey Lance. I think Niners fans and some of the media said, as you mentioned, well, Garoppolo got you to a Super Bowl, which I disagree with, but he was on the team, right? And so they could go back and say, well, he got you to a Super Bowl. He has that big game experience. Lance doesn't have that. Lance has played a handful of games the last 4 years. Like, it's a completely different, I think, comparison. I don't compare Lance to Jimmy G. And I think if Purdy struggled and had issues, then yeah, I mean, the Lance door should be wide open. I would not have done that with Garoppolo and Lance, even if Lance struggled last year, because Lance was the 3rd pick in the draft, because you invested so much. You didn't invest anything into Brock Purdy. That's why it's such a great story. He was Mr. Irrelevant. So if you were moving from Lance, to go back to Garoppolo, now you're setting sails to the number, 3 pick in the draft, and you're pretty much writing him off. So, and we're also a year removed from that. So I just think there's so many different layers to it when you compare the two things. I don't think you have to trade Lance. What I would do if I were the Niners, I would be calling teams. I would check value. If you could get a 2nd round pick for Lance, 2nd round plus, if you get a 2nd round pick plus another pick, I'd entertain that. And I'd bring in a veteran, like I said, a Baker Mayfield I mentioned a month and a half ago. If I could get a good pick for Lance, I would ship him off, and I would use that money that you're going to pay Lance, at least part of it, if not all of it, to bring in somebody like Baker. And then you could have your Baker Purdy, competition in camp if you want.
I said in the first, I think they have to have a plan B, but I'm just wondering if you want to instill that confidence in him of handing him the keys and going, this is your ride now. We're going to go wherever you take us. Maybe it's not, in a lot of people's eyes. And again, I wasn't one of the people of this school of thought. Maybe it's not the best thing in the world to have the number 3 overall pick and all the potential that came with that, looking over the guy's shoulder.
All guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. 916-339-1140 is a text line. Phone number is 1-800-920-1140. You give us a call. Phone lines are open for you. Is load management still a big problem for the NBA? We'll get to that next.
Cattles
and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Sacramento weather is brought to you by R.C. Willey Home Furnishing.
brings Macloff magic, while the other, we're still trying to figure that out.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
I can't wait for the draft mockery in about 15 minutes.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good one. Get some stuff off our chest.
This is like one of my favorite topics we've done.
Can't wait.
Get to that in about 15 minutes. If you want to weigh in on YouTube, you can. It should be a fun draft mockery. YouTube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Simone asked you to please give us the thumbs up last segment. Thumbs up. Little effort from you means a lot to us. 6A, 6P, Sactown Sports, 12 hours, Monday through Friday, live and local programming for all of you.
And free.
Yes,
live,
free.
local, and free content.
Just give us the likes, and
That's all we're asking.
we get to see more eyeballs.
We don't ask you for any money.
We
just
build
ask
this,
you for one of these right here. These thumbs up right here.
Build this channel.
More money, more money.
We promise we do not make money. Load management. Well, we don't make money off of YouTube. Ramie and Ramie, we certainly make money. We're not doing this for free.
Paid, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. All right.
Load management in the NBA. It seems like a never-ending story. I was trying to remember today when this started. Was it 6-7 years ago?
I was going to say somewhere in like the 5 to 7 year range.
Yeah,
that's what I think. That's
Kawhi was the first one, right? I think Kawhi was the first guy that this became a thing.
I thought it was a Spurs thing, like a Popovich sitting dunking and a couple of those guys.
It might go back to that. JJ
I feel like he was sitting Duncan and Manu and a couple of those guys.
But he was sitting them guys because they were 100, right?
Load management, baby.
Yeah, saving those old legs.
Kawhi was like the first guy who was like a super duper uber star that I remember. That would be considered like an MVP candidate who was in his 20s and he started taking games. That's the last guy I remember.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not guaranteeing. It's just the last guy in my mind. When I think load management, I think Kawhi was, starting that whole thing. But about load management, a lot of comments made during the All-Star break. Let's start with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver.
I then look at the data and think, all right, well, this year we're going to likely break the all-time record for tickets sold. We're likely going to have the all-time record for season ticket renewals. So our fans aren't necessarily suggesting that they're that upset with the product that we're presenting.
All right, so Silver says tickets are up. Not many people worried about it. Fans not worried about it.
And again, I mean, we just asked big deal or no big deal in terms of the All-Star game and the ratings being down. And I said it's a big deal to the NBA because that means less money. What Adam Silver is telling you right there is
we're making money.
This ain't a big deal because the money's still rolling in. Yeah. You know what I mean? Season tickets are up. Ticket sales in general are up. And that little kid crying in Miami because he didn't see Jimmy Butler play, well, to hell with him. We're still selling tickets. We're good over here. By the way, I Googled where did load management start? And it says, this is from Google. It says, while we can trace the origins of load management back many years, the term itself seemed to originate in the NBA with Joel Embiid sitting out the 2017-18 season after he missed his first 2 seasons due to navicular fractures and much of his rookie campaign due to a knee injury.
So maybe it was Joel. So yeah, Silver making the point that everything's good. We're good.
We're making money.
Making money.
I don't know what y'all are complaining about.
Anthony Edwards. Let's jump to Anthony Edwards because he had a different feeling towards load management over the weekend.
If there's anything I could change about the league to make it better, probably just all the guys sitting resting. That's the only thing I probably don't like. Just play, man. If you 80%, you got to play. I don't like all the sitting, missing games and stuff. Like these people might have enough money to come to one game. You know what I'm saying? And that might be the game they come to, and then you sitting out. You know what I'm saying? So I take pride in trying to play every game because I don't know. It might be one fan that has never seen me play, and I'm trying to play. So that's the only thing I don't like. Guys just sitting out.
Whose side would you be on, Silver's or Edwards?
I respect what Anthony Edwards is saying there, and I definitely get what he's saying. People pay good money, man. People pay good money to come out and see the best players in the NBA. I don't know about you, Nick. I've never been mad one time that the team I'm rooting for decided to sit a guy because of load management. Even if I'm going to a game, I've never been mad about that because to me, I'm always going, okay, they have their eyes on the prize. Like the number one thing on their list is win a championship and have this thing really clicking, really rolling along come playoff time. We need our best players to be healthy for that. And that's what's behind this. And we talked with Jeff Zilgit in the first hour, and he said, I've said this a million times. And he just reiterated it and confirmed it, which is that this idea, this notion, this perception that it's players and they're soft these days, and they don't care, whatever. Most of the time it's the team, and it's their medical staff, their sports science staff saying, hey, sit this one out. We think we're looking at the data, and this says you should probably sit this one out to recharge the battery a little bit. I don't really have a problem with it. I get.
Does anybody over the age of 18 have a huge problem with this?
I think some people do. And it's the same people who are upset about participation trophies. You know what I mean? The people who are worried that society has gone soft and these guys are, they're not
to me,
back in the day.
the number one goal is to win a championship.
Yes.
And whatever gets you closer to that goal, then you should be doing as a team. Like, that's the number one priority, is to win the title. And if you feel like giving certain guys load management games off is going to give you a better chance, even if it's a slightly better chance, you do it. If I told you, hey man, you got to sit Domas like 5 times or whatever during the season, and that gives us a 3% chance to win a title. All right. Well, what if we play Domas those 5 games? Well, yeah, we got about a 1.5% chance of winning a title. Okay. I got a better chance to win a title. Great. He's sitting for 5 games.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. That's the number one goal of this. You're trying to win a title. And by the way, age, injury, history matters. Like, I think people fall into this trap that every time somebody takes a game off, or, wrong phrasing, every time somebody sits, it's because of, oh, they just want this game off. Oh, they don't want to play. Well, I mean, if you're LeBron, I wouldn't mind taking a few games. Now, LeBron isn't structured that way. LeBron's come out and he's bashed load management before. But if the Lakers were sitting LeBron early in the season, and, a lot of ifs here, but if they were better and they were sitting LeBron a couple games here and there, you go, yeah, dude's 38. Like, you need him for a postseason run. So if you can sit him and rest him a little bit, it doesn't guarantee that he doesn't get injured, but it's less minutes on the knees. It's less minutes on the legs.
And by the way, this isn't something that's unique to basketball or even sports. Again, sports are entertainment. If you buy tickets to a Broadway show, for example, Nick, there might be 8 shows in a week over the course of a week. And I don't know, pick a famous Broadway act. I think Denzel is on Broadway right now. Denzel might take the night off, and you might get the understudy. And it doesn't say it on your ticket. You just show up, and Denzel ain't there. Like this. That risk is inherent in almost any form of live entertainment. You know what I mean? That something about the show might not be what you necessarily paid for. And so, like, yeah, it sucks for kids, but the rest of us are adults. Can't we swallow that pill? Tough pill to swallow, but can't we swallow it and go on with our lives?
And the only fix to me that would make sense if you wanted to try to fix this is to cut the games. Cut the games.
I don't even know if that would do it, because
you bring more urgency. You're a shorter amount of time to make up some deficits in the win-loss record.
There is that, but I'm not a sports scientist. Disclaimer. I would imagine that if I was a sports scientist, and let's say it was a 72-game season, I'd go, you're going to be fresher and healthier if you only play 62. I'm just doing like basic math here. You know what I mean? You might be fresher and healthier if you play 65 of the 72 games. I don't know. I think there's always going to be that benefit to it.
But you have less time to make it up.
I get that.
That's the idea. You have less time than when you have an 82-game schedule. I think guys feel like, no, we can get there. We can figure this thing out. We're not really rushing around too much here. All guests coming from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. As I mentioned a few moments ago, I've been waiting for this. One of my all-time favorite draft mockery topics coming up.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown
We're in the room and we're checking boards. Do you think we're being serious? Nah.
It's the mockery draft.
Want to remind you, Capital Casino, what he meant to say, conveniently located on 411 North 16th Street in downtown Sacramento. Let's get right to it. I don't want to waste too much time setting this up. I want more than enough time to dive into it. So yesterday we were having conversations about certain drivers and what drives us nuts, no pun intended, when
After
we're on
we
the road.
both spent some time on the road this weekend.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it irritated us. And so Ramie brought up, hey, that would be a great draft mockery topic. So here we are, a day later, draft mockery time. Our driving pet peeves. When you're on the road, what drives you ever loving crazy? Okay, that is the topic. You can put your best into the YouTube chat if you'd like. You can participate in the draft mockery, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Give us a like while you stop by. It's much appreciated. And you guys can tell us what drives you nuts when you're on the road. Your pet peeves when you're driving. All right, the draft order. Myself, Ramie, Simone, and JJ will round up the first set of picks. Okay, so hands down, this is the thing that drives me nuts. I would say every single day. Every single day, I will get irritated, frustrated, or angry at somebody. Put your phone down. Put your phone. You are not that important.
Be honest. Are you ever guilty of it?
No.
No?
Nope. Unless you have a family emergency, unless you're the president of the United States. And in that case, you're not driving. They drive for you when you're the president. There is no reason why you should be on your phone while you're driving. There's no group chat that's important enough to maybe cause a car accident.
What if somebody gets the joke off before I get it off in the group chat? I need the laughs.
Oh, well.
I need the attention.
Guess what? You're not that big of a deal.
Somebody might think of that GIF before I do.
I'm not that big of a deal. Nobody is that big of a deal. You don't need to be looking on your phone while you're driving.
I feel like you're undervaluing the group chat.
Saw another one of these people today when they're like swerving almost like into the other lane because they can't keep their eyes off the phone. Get on, like pull over. If it's such a pull over.
Wild.
You can text, pull over, text, they get back on the road. Pull over, make a phone call, back on the road.
You good?
Yeah.
All right. For me, I'm surprised you didn't take this with the first pick, Nick. It's not just people driving slow in the left lane. It's when it's like they're synchronized, like across all 2 or 3 or 4 or how many lanes.
Yes.
Everybody in synchronicity is driving the same slow ass speed, 5 miles.
They're driving parallel.
Yes.
They're parallel with each other. I hate it.
Somebody's got to give. Somebody's got to slow down.
That happened to me today.
Or pick up the speed and give the rest of us an opening, and preferably an opening to pass on the left because that's where you're supposed to pass.
I was driving behind 2 people today, just perfectly fine driving like 35 and a 45. I'm like,
I hate it, man.
Why are you fine?
How are they comfortable with it? You're supposed to leave yourself an out. You know what I mean? In case something happens. You're not supposed to drive with somebody right next to you. That's unsafe, people. You're being unsafe.
All right, Simone, you're up.
Oh, my God. Nothing gets me going like high beams.
Oh, the high beam people.
On a dark road.
The high beam people who
I don't know if
realize.
you guys have had to do that for too much of your California exploration, but man, the Santa Cruz, the Fort Bragg of it all, and then I'm blinded, I'm mad, I'm driving the whole family. It's terrible, and that's
2-lane highway jump.
Yeah,
there's no adjustments from people. Like if
I'm
somebody's
so courteous, I'm taking mine down, and you're not going to take yours down. Gets
that's
me
the
hot.
thing. Like if you got somebody coming towards you, just flip out.
Do you turn yours? If they don't turn theirs off, do you turn yours back on?
Mine are already
No, I'm not that
off.
guy.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
And you have a truck too, so you can go higher.
That's
You
true.
can add a cat
You
right
can get
there.
right in their eyes.
I could really destroy people.
Yeah, you could.
All right, JJ, back to back.
Yeah, you'll see a theme with mine. It's definitely- you took one of mine, Ramie, which is everyone's driving parallel and very slow.
Yes.
This is for my peacekeepers out there. If you listen to the if you're listening to the show right now and you work for our law enforcement, I have a beef with you guys. So this is my issue is I never see the PD, highway patrol, sheriffs. I don't care who you are. You could be the Coast Guard for all I care, a park ranger. You never pull no one over for going slow. Do it.
Dude, JJ, I saw a cop in Indiana tweeted out that he did that, and people he got 1,000 congratulations and thank yous in the replies.
I would shout him some flowers, unlike a lot of people on our show do, But that's my whole thing is we're going to talk about. A lot of us are going to pick a couple things of going slow. My law enforcement. Pull over slow drivers.
Yes.
That's my first.
I agree with you.
All right, coming back around. Coming back around. This is for my parents, people who drop off children. Nick, hopefully you'll have this great thing to do something. Yeah, sooner or later. You have to stick with the unwritten rules. I'm a baseball guy, right?
Right.
Look, when I'm dropping off my child, my daughter at school, it is a rhythm to this situation. You pull up, she jumps out, you keep it moving. Right? That's the rhythm.
We love you, baby. Have a great day. And she jumps out the car.
Yes. Come on now. It's like a conveyor belt. Let's go. Learn the unwritten rules, people.
These long farewells.
Yes.
First of all, you're going to see that shit in 8 hours. It doesn't need to take that long.
Yes,
to take that long.
Look, move on. Let's go. Follow the pattern. Unwritten rules.
All right, Simone.
Back to me, right? Back to me. Improperly secured loads.
Ooh.
Wow.
Was that a mouthful?
That's a deep one.
Yeah, Simone.
I
like
feel
when you
like
see it, but a big, on the back of a truck, and it's bouncing and moving. You're like, that thing's gonna fall on somebody.
I saw a flatbed yesterday with a bunch of 2x4s, nothing holding anything down. I'm like, that's gonna end terrible.
Totally. And I've been on the other side of now it's in the road. Everyone is having to stop, or someone's gonna mess up their car real bad. I can't stand it.
You know what's never been a good idea? Tying your mattress to the top of your car.
Ooh, seen it.
It's never worked. It's never been a good idea.
I love when people have way too much furniture and they're trying to hold it with one arm and they're driving.
That. I was gonna say I've done that in college.
I've been one of those people. I'm not gonna lie.
It's like $20 to rent a U-Haul.
It was not my choice. It was my dad.
You can rent a U-Haul.
Renting a truck. We have hands. What do we need to rent a truck? Here's back to me, right? I always get the order messed up. People who won't let you merge. Dude, either whether you're getting on the highway or your lane is just ending and you're trying to move over, and some dude is there. It's always a dude who's acting like, no, this is my lane. I'm not in a race with you, buddy. I'm not jockeying for position. I'm just trying to get where I'm going. And this lane I drive in ends and I'm trying to move over.
Not a competition.
Right, exactly. Just let me in. Why won't you let people merge? What is that?
Dude, I have so many on my list. Overcautious, nonstop pump the brake people.
Yes. It was on my list.
Stop.
Dude,
Stop.
I was running into that all weekend.
Oh, my word.
Weekend.
Especially when there's 800 feet in between them and the car in front, and they still feel the need to keep pumping the brake or slam on the stop. And here's a suggestion for people. Guess what? If you're going uphill, you don't have to hit your brake to slow down because you're going up an incline. Your car will naturally slow down. It's much like when you're going downhill, it's going to pick up speed. That's when you might want to pump the brakes so you don't slam into somebody.
Give these cats some game, Nick. And and when you're declining, you're coming downhill, you don't have to ride your brakes. Just come off the gas, bro.
Just let it roll. You're fine. You're on wheels. It'll keep going.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if you're talking about when you're going down the side of a mountain, JJ. I'm that dude.
No. Really?
I'm that dude who's driving.
Man, don't go to Tahoe yet. Have you gotten to Tahoe yet?
Man, I am terrible at it. I can't help it. I'm terrible at driving on these mountains, man. I get so nervous.
My final one: do not beep at me when it's your fault. These people that do something that get me angry, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And then they beep at me. That is that brings it up a level.
Like when you're turning right onto a street and they're turning left onto the same street and they don't yield, which they should for you, and they honk how dare you get in my way?
Or somebody cuts me off and I beep at them. They beep at me. I'm like, you're the one that just cut me off like a maniac.
Set it off.
Why am I getting beeped at? Like, take accountability for your actions. The people that beep at me when they do something stupid, don't beep at me because you had momentary stupidity.
Back around to me.
Yes.
Deuce and Mo both said this was theirs. I asked them in the crossover from Deuce and Mo to Cattles and Ramie, and they both said, and this, it's not all the time, but when you should have a signal on.
Oh, the turn signal thing.
Turn the signal on, man. Like,
That-
you don't need. I'm not a real stickler for. If there's nobody behind you, or there's a way behind you, all right, I get. But it's so easy. It's just like just click it.
Every day.
How hard is it to turn on a
Every
turn
day for
signal?
me.
Not hard.
It's
Every
so
day.
easy.
All right, Simone, you're up next.
Oh my God. Oh, I sound like such a softie, but not stopping for pedestrians. That's also on my route home.
Yeah.
And no one does that.
Heartwarming. The heartwarming one from Simone. Let the pedestrians go.
No, because then I stop my car like a responsible
I'm
human
sorry,
being,
you
and
need
then
one of
someone's
those-
about to slam into me, and then I'm gonna miss another day of Cattles and Ramie, and that's gonna be that.
Oh yeah, you're really worried about that. You're missing Friday.
Simone, the other day I was at one of these uncontrolled intersections where it's like up to the cars if they're going to stop for pedestrians. 3 lanes across. All 3 lanes stop. One guy decided, goes around all 3 and flying through the crosswalk and almost kills me, my girlfriend. And like, dude, you see all 3 lanes stopped. What makes you think there isn't a good reason for it? People are the worst. That's what we're learning here.
God.
Last one.
Yeah, last one, because I know we have to break. Kind of the same thing with what you said, Nick, but I'm just going to take it a little further. If the light is green, if you've already set at the stop sign for 12 seconds, you've already played alligator 1, alligator 2, alligator 3, alligator 4, alligator 5, alligator 6, alligator 7.
By 3, I'm done.
Yeah, come on, man, right? Look, this is California. We do the California stop. Get off the brake, get on the gas. That's where we at. I can't stand people who sit at the light and or the stop sign and or like Simone will be waiting on pedestrians. It's time to go, man.
JJ, were you the guy who went around all 3 lanes?
I would have been mobbing, bro. I'm
All right, we'll continue to sprinkle them in throughout the show. I have a feeling this is not over just yet. We also have some people weighing in on YouTube, so we'll sprinkle them in throughout the next couple of hours. Coming up next, were the Kings really that good pre-All-Star break, or did parity deceive us?
Cattles
and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Live and local in the afternoon.
They always keep you on edge.
Cattles
And Ramie
on Sactown Sports.
Hour number 3 of the program. Thanks for joining us as always. We appreciate you. So the Kings, as we get ready for them to return tomorrow night, 32-25, 7 games above 500. They're the 3 seed in the Western Conference. 25 games left. And Ramie, there was a tweet we brought up earlier in the show from Brendan Nunez, the Kings Herald. And here's what the tweet read. If the Kings continue at their current 56% win percentage, they'd end the season 46-36. When you look back at the previous last 5 seasons, if you look at the record of 46-36, that would say you would finish tied for 7th, then 8th, then 8th, then 9th, then tied for 9th. As Brendan tweeted, the best teams lock in post All-Star break. Sacramento will need to do the same. You had your question that kind of popped up in your head. As you said, it broke your brain about whether or not, mic check, the Kings can be even better. What I thought of when I saw this tweet was whether or not the Kings were actually that good in the first half in the pre-All-Star break. Was it that they were that good, or was it the parity of the league and parity of the Western Conference that deceived us to believe that the Kings were good enough to be a 3-seed team, the upper echelon of the conference?
That's a tough question to answer. Because it's this is going to sound weird. It's felt so good, hasn't it, to this point? Hasn't it, Sacramento?
Yes.
Hasn't it felt so good?
It has.
The way that this season has gone right up to the All-Star break. But then when you look at that and base it on win percentage and as Brendan does, extend it out to the end of the season, what it would be, you're looking at what in most years would be like just an okay season for an NBA team. Whereas for the Kings so far, this feels much better than okay to this point, with them sitting at 32-25 and with the 3 seed in the Western Conference. But I look at it and, like, Nick, if I thought that this landscape that we're looking at now was a blip on the radar, and you never know what's going to happen, you never know what's going to change, you never know what player movement is going to transpire between now and next year or years from now. But if I looked at these standings and this landscape and thought that this was just a blip and it wasn't something that was sort of here to stay,
yeah,
I would say, yeah, maybe it's just parity. But I think this is the NBA has put mechanisms in place in previous CBAs to try and prevent the concentration of talent in just a couple of markets. And I think we're seeing it. We're seeing the fruits of that now. And I think we're going to see more parity in the NBA and on a regular basis moving forward. And so I think this might just be the new reality, that you're not going to have the haves with 50, 60 plus wins at the top and the have-nots filling up the rest of the standings. I think these types of tight standings and quality teams 1 through 6, if not deeper, kind of being the norm for the NBA moving forward. I hope it is, personally. I don't know about you.
You know, I think it's a fascinating question because, you know, when you look at it, you could say, well, you are who you are, right? You are what your record says you are. If you're the 3rd seed, then you deserve to be the 3rd seed, and that's what this team is. So I'm not trying to write anything off about this team. I think everybody should feel really good, as Ramie said, about where you are. Do not feel bad about this season. You are in a great place. However, I do think that this year has been an anomaly. And whether or not it's going to be looked back as an anomaly 5 years from now, I have no idea. I cannot predict the future. If I could, I'd be worth billions of dollars and living on some island somewhere. I can't tell you what the next 5 years is going to be, but I can tell you, as Brendan Nunez did, you know, if this were the last 4 or 5 years, you're probably looking at a different situation than being the 3 seed. So you deserve to be the 3 seed because that's what you are, but you also have to look at the rest of the conference. I mean, last year, you look at it, again, as Brendan tweeted yesterday, if you win 56% of your games, you would end the season at 46-36, okay? 46-36. If you look at last year, the top 5 seeds, 64 wins, 56 wins, 53 wins, 52 wins, 49 wins. So the top 4 seeds had more than 50 wins. So that I think, yes, you are where you are because you deserve to be where you are. But there have been a lot of injuries that have no doubt impacted this. And that's not to take away from what you've done. But Phoenix has had to deal with a bunch of injuries. How long did Devin Booker have to sit out? New Orleans, missing both Ingram and Zion for a long time.
But
Zion, yes.
Zion,
But Ingram and Zion, that's a different world. That's 2 of your top 3 players, probably your 2 best players. Not even probably, definitely. The Clippers with Kawhi, yes, it's not necessarily something that's surprising, but the point is those teams had to deal with tons of injuries. You, meanwhile, have been incredibly healthy, and I think that's something we cannot overlook. The Kings have been incredibly healthy. Foxy's missed 4 games, 5 games. Domas has missed 1 game. Your 2 stars have been on the floor almost every single night.
Yeah, that's huge.
So when you look at it, I can't sit here and tell you, and I don't think anybody can tell you this, that the Kings are the 3rd best team in the Western Conference. Record-wise and where they are, of course, but you know what I mean. If you're looking at the end of this year, I don't know 25 games down the road how many people are super confident saying this team will be the 3 seed. I'm confident they'll be in the playoffs. I'm confident they'll be a top 6 seed, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, they're in the top, 2 or 3 of the conference. That's how things fell before the All-Star break, which is great, and you played well enough to be there. But there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen over the next, month or 2. And let's not forget that, yes, you are the 3rd seed, but you're still only, 2.5 games ahead of the 6th seed. So in this year, which again, until I see this happen multiple years consistently, back to back to back to back, I'm going to treat this season as somewhat of an anomaly, the way the teams have performed and how close and tight the Western Conference has been. This might be the new thing, and maybe this is all the beginning of it. But from what I know, what I've seen, usually, how you've played would not necessarily mean you'd be sitting in the 3 spot.
I get what you're saying, that the upper half of the standings would usually be a little bit more crowded than they usually are, Nick. But I would contend that while there may be more teams on that end of the seesaw, so to speak, I think that the depth of especially the Western Conference is so much better. Like when you talk about injuries, you're talking about Golden State. You already mentioned these teams, Phoenix, the Clippers. They'd probably be a little higher up in the standings if they were healthy. But at the same time, I think Oklahoma City is a young team and only getting better and has a chance to climb in the standings in years to come. Same thing with Minnesota. Same thing with Dallas, and with the guy as young and as good as Luka. I think that we're seeing a depth being developed in the Western Conference and across the NBA that is different than what we've seen in a long time, that kind of balances out what you're saying. Yeah, it'd be a little bit tougher if those teams were healthier. But at the same time, I don't think that even healthy, those teams have a lot of distance between themselves and the Kings and these other teams I've mentioned, the Mavericks, the Wolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, as they develop and get better. I don't think it's the haves and the have-nots anymore. I think this is maybe not this, but I think this is closer to what the new norm might be than what a lot of people think.
I think the amount of injuries has leveled the playing field, and I think there is some.
I think there's always going to be injuries, though.
I think there is parity, that's somewhat deceiving us as far as if you think this team is a top 3 team in the conference. I think the injuries and some stuff that's happened has played a huge factor. And on the other end, again, you being so healthy. I want people's thoughts out there. Kings fans' thoughts on this. Are the Kings pre-All-Star break, were they that good, or were we deceived a little bit by the parity and the injury situation, everything that happened in the Western Conference being so tight? Want your thoughts? 916-339-1140 is the text line. The phone number is 1-800-920-1140. You can catch us on YouTube, youtube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. We'll get to your reaction. Also, while the NBA zigs, the Kings zag. We'll explain in 90 seconds.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports. The only place you'll find Keegan Murray. Magic, while the other, we're still trying to figure that out.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
4:15 on a Wednesday. Happy hump day. Hump day. Time check brought to you by Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. A lot of stuff going on today. Lots and lots of stuff going on. Just talked about the Kings and whether or not that pre-All-Star 57 games, told us that the Kings are really that good, or if there was a little fool's gold, if it was a little more having to do with the rest of the conference and this being more of an anomaly. JJ, you're a Kings fan. You've been a Kings fan your whole life. Pre-All-Star break, are the Kings that good, or do you think it's a little fool's gold and you think it's a bit of an anomaly?
There's some of that fool's gold. I think it's an anomaly. I think you hit it spot on. Injuries have derailed the Clippers. We've seen, the Suns be hurt, banged up, which we kind of expected with the Suns and Clippers. But, yeah, I think there's something to be said that the Kings are better, but I don't believe they're third seed better.
Simone, what do you think?
No, I'm with you guys. A little bit of fool's gold sprinkled in there. This is it's a great time to be a Sacramento Kings fan, but I think it's going to be short-lived, and I think we're going to get swallowed up.
So I'm the only one who
and the
believes this
Warriors
is real.
too. I forgot to mention them.
I mean, the fact you have 4 or 5 teams that I think before the season began you would likely slot ahead of Sacramento, all dealing with some major injury issues. Major. We're not talking about a guy missing a week or two.
Mm-hmm.
Steph missed a ton of time for Golden State. And, I ran
Golden
through
State is getting healthier and younger, though.
Did you have the Kings finishing ahead of Golden State before the season tipped off?
But I never presume injuries before.
Yeah, but we all knew they were
fact.
aging.
I understand.
You can't circle back and say, oh, yeah. But, what I'm saying is before the season tipped off, you would slot them above the Kings. And I think with a healthy Steph Curry, they're right there. I know people want to throw dirt on Golden State, but they're 500 right now. And how many games has Steph missed? I'm not going to write them off. I think it's absolutely possible that the Warriors get a playoff spot. I'm not going to write them off.
Yeah, no, I think they'll get a playoff
Are they
spot.
champions? No, I don't know if they're champions.
I think to expect Golden State to get back to their peak form that's fool's gold to me.
But can you? Well, again, I agree. We agree. I'm not saying that they're going to get back to where they were. My point is, I would still put them ahead if they were healthy of the Kings. That's my point. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about are they still elite. We're talking about where would they be if they were fully healthy. And I think Steph being fully healthy, if they weren't above the Kings, they'd be right there in the conversation.
Sure.
So, I just, again, and if we're going to play that game, then we have to play the game of saying, well, are the Kings going to stay healthy? Is Fox and Domas going to stay completely healthy and be able to play? I know Domas got hurt, but it was an injury he could play through.
Right.
Are they going to continue to have that kind of health? Because, if it's one for one, then it's one for the other. So if we're sitting there going, yeah, but can they stay healthy? Well, can the Kings stay healthy? It's tough to get through a full 82 game season with your top 2 guys not getting hurt enough to sit down for a couple of weeks. Again, you're looking at New Orleans, and even if you removed Zion from the equation with Brandon Ingram, the dude missed a ton of games. Devin Booker missed a ton of games. Chris Paul's missed a number of games.
I look at the Kings and I see arrow pointing up. I look and you're right, Nick. Everything healthy, all things being equal.
You're changing.
No.
You're moving the goalposts.
I'm going to come back around.
Okay.
I'm going to come back around.
Okay.
Before the season started, yeah, maybe the Warriors fully healthy. I'd put them ahead of the Kings. I did when we made our preseason predictions. With those two teams trending the way that they're trending, even when healthy, I don't know that to be the case anymore.
Okay.
The Kings have been better than I thought they were, and I think when you're looking at the Warriors, you're looking at an aging roster that has started to show cracks. And usually when that happens, it tends to keep going that way and not go back the other way.
Something else about the Kings. So David Aldridge wrote in The Athletic over the last day or so about size in the NBA. He brought up Lopez and Giannis in Milwaukee.
This was interesting.
Yeah, he brought up Rob Williams and Horford in Boston. He brought up Denver and how big Denver is. He also, mentioned the evolution of the game and how these bigs are not kind of your old school prototypical bigs, at least not all of them. And it was, as I was reading this Aldridge article, and you guys can check it out again, it's at The Athletic. It's really good work by David. As I was reading this, I started to think about the Kings roster and the fact that Domas is the only regular that is over 6'9". And
that's
so
crazy.
Aldridge's argument is that the NBA is shifting towards size everywhere. Like you just want size at all positions.
Yeah.
And this idea of, the Lakers, when they won their championship in the bubble, how big they were. And that kind of set this to move forward. And it's interesting, Ramie, when you think about what Aldridge's case is and where the Kings are currently with this roster, it's almost like the Kings are zigging while the NBA is zagging, so to speak.
Yeah, and which is weird, Nick, because I feel like the league just zagged. It doesn't seem like that. We were just talking the other day about the 3-point evolution and the league kind of getting smaller and going back to jump shots and 3-pointers. And now it seems like in the blink of an eye, it's stopping on a dime and going completely back in the other direction. And I think that if you don't, it's in any industry, it's evolve or get left behind.
Yeah.
And look, the need for size on this Kings roster was already glaring. We've talked about it all season, especially a backup big to give Domas a little bit of break. When you read that article, it becomes all that much more glaring, the need for size on this Kings roster, given the direction that this team is going. And if you're not already, you're on most nights, you're going to go out there and just be outsized by the other team, which gives them an instant advantage in a lot of different ways and a lot of different spots on the court. It's not going to happen overnight that the Kings are going to be phased out of this new look NBA, but you got to keep up, man, and you got to keep with that trend.
I think it limits your versatility. The Kings, they've lost to teams the same way many, many times. And they've also lost to particular teams that bug them. Length, athleticism, some size. If you have one, two, or all three of those things, you have a good chance of beating the Kings. And so it falls in line with what Aldridge wrote. Like athletic long teams, your issues in the paint, all of that comes back to this roster and how it's constructed, and the fact, again, that Domas is the only guy that's getting big minutes that's, taller than 6'9". You have, Barnes and Keegan who are decent-sized wings, but they're not guys that are going to necessarily be able to defend other dudes who are 6'9", 6'10", or taller. And so it's the Victor Wembanyama thing, Ramie. Like, that's the league is just going towards just highly skilled 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", 7-foot dudes.
Where are all these dudes coming from?
And if you're
all these skills,
if you're the Kings, you have to shoot great. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Like, because you're not going to be able to check off the athleticism box many times. You're not going to be able to check off the length box many times. You're not going to be able to check off the size box many times. Your great equalizer, so to speak, is your 3-point shot making. You have to make threes. If you make threes, now you force, the teams that might be bigger than you to adjust and all. You have to make your threes. And that is, I think that's why Monty built the team the way he did. He brought in shooters during the offseason, right? Because he knew that they might not have the consistent size across the board like a lot of these other teams. And I would say, like, if you're Monty, tops on my list last offseason was shooting. We talked about that. I said shooting, more shooting. This offseason, length, athleticism, a legitimate big who can play behind Domas if you don't get anything out of Holmes the next 25 games. And yeah, more shooting. But that's I'm looking at length and athleticism and size.
How about all that?
Team.
Just a 7-footer who can shoot the three.
Sure.
Let's get all that in one package. Play a little defense, protect the paint.
Kevin Durant. You can bring Kevin Durant, who can
There
defend.
you go. We just solved it.
Can defend like
We
all
just
five
fixed,
positions.
We just fixed everything with the Kings.
Can
Go get
shoot-
Kevin Durant.
Can shoot the lights
Duh.
out. Come on now.
What are we doing here?
Everybody knows that. We play Who's to Blame next.
Cattles.
And Ramie.
Whether you win or lose, it's how you place the blame.
It's Who to Blame
on Cattles and Ramie.
Want to remind everybody, all guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Who's to blame on this Wednesday? Let's talk about Vegas, Ramie. The Raiders are now QB hunting. Derek Carr, he gone. Of course, you have 3 options here: free agency, draft, trade. And inevitably, the biggest question is, are the Raiders contenders? Because I think if you consider them contenders or you consider them wanting to contend, then you're going to go a certain way for a certain quarterback, right? You're going to try to go out there and get the best quarterback possible. Try to find that answer. But this was interesting. Dave Ziegler, the GM of the Raiders, he was on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast, and here's what he had to say about the QB position.
At the end of the day, like, I'm in charge of myself and, our group. We're in charge of filling the most important position on the team. And so, yeah, there's some, there's some pressure that comes along with that. And however we fill it, it doesn't mean we're going to have an immediate answer, this year. You know what I mean? And so, but at the end of the day, we have to have an answer.
Right.
In some form or fashion, and so, yeah, there's pressure that comes along with it. And again, that's also part of the excitement too, is that pressure, is finding that guy. That'll be the next task.
So what Ziegler is saying is it is not out of the realm of possibility that they go with a stopgap quarterback. The guy they bring in this year might not be the answer. Ramie, question. If the Raiders go with a stopgap QB, who's to blame?
It's never just one person, is it? Except when you play Who's to Blame. Then we just have to pick one person and point a finger at that person. And for me, it's Josh McDaniels, man. I talk about the Super Bowl window with the 49ers, and that window is wide open. You know what I mean? And it has been for at least 3 years now. With the Raiders, with the moves that they made last offseason, they thought they were like cracking the window open.
Yeah.
Like opening a Super Bowl
At least
window
it felt that way
for years to come. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And if you go to a stopgap quarterback because Josh McDaniels couldn't make it work with Derek Carr, you just slam that window right shut and still have Devontae Adams just rotting on your roster. Still have other aging guys with big contracts just rotting away on your roster because this roster is good. It's not good enough to do what the 49ers do, which is overcome average, mediocre quarterback play if need be and win games in other ways. They need a franchise quarterback or something close to that for this team to reach its full potential and for that window to be open. And the reason that guy isn't there anymore is Josh McDaniels and that he couldn't make it work with Derek Carr. And now you might be left the team with nowhere to sit in the game of quarterback musical chairs when all is said and done this offseason.
Dave Ziegler is my guy at the top of the list on who's to blame. Bill Parcells once said, if they want you to cook the dinner, at least they ought to let you shop for some of the groceries. And Bill's point was, you want me to coach this team, but I'm not picking the guys that are gonna actually play for me. Dave Ziegler's number one job is to evaluate the roster and to find that quarterback. If the Raiders are unable to find the quarterback, that's on the GM. It's not on the head coach. And I know Josh McDaniels is obviously weighing in on these decisions, but don't forget, McDaniels failed so miserably in Denver as the head coach / GM. I don't think he's calling these shots. I mean, I think you try to create a roster that goes along with what your coach likes to do, but I don't think McDaniels is walking in saying, that's the guy to bring in. It's Dave Ziegler's job. Dave Ziegler's number one job is to cultivate this roster and to find that guy. If you fail to find that guy, that's on the GM more than it is on the head coach. The head coach can coach him, but you have to evaluate him and make sure you bring the right person
Didn't
in.
Josh McDaniels make his job harder by taking what's been a pretty good quarterback and kind of taking 5 steps backwards with him as an offense and as a team?
Well, look, I think it depends on how you feel about Derek Carr and what McDaniels can do with the next person and whether or not Derek Carr was fulfilling McDaniels' system. I mean, if McDaniels looks at Derek Carr and says he's not a great fit for what we're trying to do here, we're not going to be able to reach the promised land, then you make the decision you make, right? I would say, though, that if you go with a stopgap, it's an awful, as they say, quote unquote, look for the Raiders. Because as I mentioned when they let Derek Carr go, you better replace that guy with an upgrade. Because Derek Carr might not be a great quarterback, but I've always said I consider Carr a top 12-ish quarterback in the league. It's tough to replace those guys.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have, the plan, if you don't bring somebody in, and it doesn't have to be this year. Like, if I can live with if they draft a guy at 7 or they move up, you know what I mean? If you draft a guy and you say, we're going to wait a year and then bring in somebody else, I could somewhat live with that and justify it because at least you should have the guy on the roster for at least next year. But if they go out and they get Jimmy Garoppolo, they don't draft anybody, it's like Jimmy G's their answer, then I don't think you upgraded tremendously at quarterback, if at all. I don't think you did. I like Derek Carr better than Jimmy G.
Yeah, I would take Derek Carr over Jimmy G.
So that to me is the bigger question for them.
I don't know how you put yourself in this situation. By the way, I saw a picture of Mark Davis over the weekend, and he had hair again.
What?
What is happening?
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Got hair that people would die to have.
Was it a recent picture?
I think so, yeah. I think it was a picture from, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Super Bowl weekend.
Come on now. Can't be true.
I swear. I saw it on Twitter. He had hair again.
Why would you?
I don't know how you just step out bald and then show up the next week in the
big boy deal what he always do.
Was he wearing like a bald cap? Like,
I don't know. I would imagine that he just gave up the gig here. He's wearing a piece, right? If he just shows up with a full head of hair,
so that's what I said when the bald
jig
picture,
is up.
the bald picture, he looks completely bald, and what I mean by that is, it looks like he's just like there's nothing up there.
Right.
Now he either did it with like a Bic razor or something. And he was like the super clean shaven right when that picture was taken.
I'm trying to find the picture right now. But yeah, had hair again.
Yeah,
right back to that weird hairstyle.
You have to wonder if it's a tooth. Like I said, it could easily be a tooth.
I mean, if he just showed up with hair 3 days after he didn't have hair, then I think he just let us all
Jimmy
know.
Butler showed up with dreads and then
wouldn't be the first time. Wouldn't be the only one, Ramie. It happens every day, brother.
But I mean, like I said, the jig is up after that. You're not going to convince anybody that's real. What's going on up there? I'm trying to find the picture right now. I'm telling you, this man just stepped out with hair again.
Track it down. It's 4:39 on this Wednesday. Time check brought to you by Coastside Medical Clinic, dedicated to providing breakthrough remedies for men. Much more coming up.
Cattles
and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Hello there. My name is Seychelle, and what makes the
At a time during the afternoon drive. Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
All right, couple things before we get to some great audio from an NFL superstar. Kevin Durant and the Suns. This is according to Shams Charania, targeting his Suns debut and return to action a week from tonight. Road game against Charlotte. Durant is on the cusp of return from his MCL sprain that he suffered on January 8th. So it's been a month and a half since KD has played
Has it been
in a
that
game.
long already?
Yeah,
Huh.
January 8th.
I'm curious to see what that looks like, man. Like, it ain't good news for the Kings, but just the basketball fan in me is really curious to see what that thing can look like. That could be some really pretty basketball that we see in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Not good for the Kings, but it could be, fun to watch in other ways.
They certainly have the ingredients to just devastate. It's going to be whether or not they can stay healthy. And so I don't even have much question whether or not they could work cohesively. I think KD and CP3 will make it work.
Yeah.
They've been around for too long. They've played with too many different kinds of players. They'll get it. They'll understand. It's just, health, especially KD. Can KD, because I think you could still possibly win a round or two with Cameron Payne starting at point guard if you got KD and Booker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just KD is the heart of this thing. Booker too, and Booker's dealt with a lot of injuries as well. So last segment, you mentioned that there was a picture online.
That's not even the one. I shared one with you guys during the break. That's not even the one that I saw. I can't find the one that I saw, but
a picture online of Mark Davis.
Yes.
And it does look like Mark Davis.
And it does look like his ridiculous haircut, does it not?
If it is Mark Davis, then it does also appear that he has hair.
Just need a timestamp, though.
Yeah, I know.
We need a timestamp on when this picture was taken.
What is happening?
Can we have some of?
Do we have people on the ground in Las Vegas who can get us?
He's on the ground.
They're on the ground.
I actually do.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a person.
Can he get a picture of Mark Davis?
I don't know. Maybe, but it's we need like JJ said, we need somebody to stand next to him with the date written on the paper or
a
something.
newspaper.
We don't want to get catfished here, Ronnie.
No,
I feel like I'm getting hook, line, and sinker right
the Manti Te'o Netflix.
I've gotten got
doc.
before.
Yes.
I've gotten got. Not like Manti Te'o, but I've gotten got before.
No. I hate that for you.
No.
No, I just mean I've run with stories that aren't true on the air. Nothing
gotcha.
like Manti.
It's even
Te'o.
tougher for
Sorry.
us now because
Yes.
the blue check mark is like everywhere.
Yeah, you can just buy one.
Thanks, Elon.
I thought those were getting taken away soon.
I don't know, man.
They are.
The legacy blue check marks are getting taken away soon.
All I
Yep,
know is
very
now I have to pay if I want authentication, 2-factor authentication. I have to pay for it now.
Yeah, apparently.
So the only way I can protect my Twitter account now is if I pay Elon Musk
Pay for it
because
Yes.
he paid an outrageous amount of money for Twitter.
It's literally mafia style. Like would be an awful shame if something happened to your Twitter account, wouldn't it?
Try and get the moolah.
You probably want to pay us to make sure that your Twitter account is safe.
It was out of
Nick.
respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
You don't really know the damage that you've been doing, okay?
You never know. You never know what could happen to your Twitter account. You know what I mean?
Elon's got a guy.
You know what I'm saying?
Elon's got a guy. He's paying attention to all these blue check marks. He'll get you.
You might want to keep that blue check mark, is all I'm saying. You know, $8, not much money to keep yourself safe.
Just
That's literally what's happening right now.
Are you not paying that? Are you not paying that fee there, Nick?
I ain't paying
No,
that
okay.
fee.
No, take my check mark.
Somebody takes my Twitter account and tweets something. Oh well. I'm not paying Elon Musk.
I probably said
Outrageous.
words. I'm gonna
Just Elon Musk. I thought he was all about, freedom.
I'm all about the electric cars, man. Do your thing.
Yeah.
Leave Twitter alone.
Oh, Twitter is going to be such a bad place.
Just keep
God. It's saying the people with the new Twitter Blue are going to have their tweets prioritized and their mentions and their search.
Yeah, you gotta pay
see
'em.
half the number of ads. This is
Algorithm.
ugh.
The algo now.
The old algo.
Alg.
We shortened it to the
It's just Al.
Simone just shortened it even more.
Just an Al?
Now it's just
Yeah, it's
alg.
No,
Not even a G, just Al.
She said the G and then she took the G off.
Just
Yeah, pretty much she could be like, It's all about the ah.
for the old
We love Al. Get it?
By the way, we talked about earlier in the show, we talked about driving pet peeves for the draft mockery.
Yes.
I still have such a big list left.
Give one or two right now, real quick.
Driving really slow in the left lane on the highway freeway.
Yeah, that's one
for sure.
Yeah.
Drives me crazy. People that change lanes carelessly for no reason. Seems like they have to get to the next lane over for no reason. They just don't. And you're like, was there a reason for that? And you realize as you continue to drive down the road, there was no reason. They weren't trying to get to a breakdown lane or an exit or anything like that. They weren't even trying to like go faster.
They just had a spasm.
They had to get to the next lane.
Okay, with all this being said, do you think Californians, are we responsible enough to have like an Autobahn situation?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
All right. Someone said that in the YouTube chat. I just wanted to get that point out.
I wouldn't trust it.
No, shut it down.
No. Shut it down.
Not happening. Not happening. Not on my watch. All right, let's get back to sports. A.J. Brown, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports here on a Wednesday. He obviously made a huge impact for the Eagles. I don't think they get to the Super Bowl without A.J. Brown. That impact, no doubt, not debatable. And the impact that he had on Jalen Hurts, Ramie, again, not debatable. Jalen Hurts, unequivocally a better quarterback with A.J. Brown as his number one receiver. But the deal that got A.J. Brown to Philly, there was some drama around that because he's never really been shy about posting his thoughts on social media. And there was this back and forth with the Titans at the time. And as we know, he got traded. So A.J. Brown was on the Raw Room podcast recently. And here's what he had to say about the deal.
Whole process, man, they offered me like 16 up to like 20 with incentives. And so we was like, no disrespect, but like, don't disrespect me, bro. Right, you feel me? Like, I'm playing behind Derrick Henry, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can go crazy, bro. Like, you know, he getting the ball 30 times. You know what I'm saying? Like, all that went down. And so my agent was like, at some point, like, you got to let him know, like, you know what I'm saying? You're not playing. So he telling me, I'm like, listen, bro, I ain't never went through this. You know what I'm saying? Like, tell me what I need to do. You know what I'm saying? I paid you, you know what I'm saying? To do a job. Leave me. He like, stop talking to them. He like, stop talking, cut off all communication.
So that's when they started saying that you start talking.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So me and Brave got a good relationship.
I mean, that man like he about to cry that.
So he's saying Vray, he means Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
So he's going back and forth. He's getting frustrated by the communication process. His agent says, well, tell him. And AJ's like, I pay you to tell him. What? Tell me what are we doing here? And then so the agent said, all right, just pretty much just kill all communication. Don't talk to anybody. But AJ says I had a really good relationship with Mike Vrabel. So here we go.
So me and Bray got a good relationship, and he was kind of a little hurt about me not talking to him. I was talking to somebody in the building, but I ain't gonna say no name. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And he was just kind of giving me advice too, what to do, you know, how to proceed. Shoot, they just never move, bro. Like they stopped, they would never like move, like even all the way up to drive. Like, bro, like, of course, like we asked for like a crazy number because that's start of negotiating. You're supposed to start high. You're supposed to start high. You're supposed to start high. But my agent knew like what number I took. You know, I'd have took 22 to stay in Tennessee.
And so AJ goes into texts.
He's reading, literally reading texts that Mike Vrabel sent him.
Yeah. Look, I know he was frustrated, obviously, but I don't think this is how you go about it. I think when you do something like this, you just ruined all trust moving forward. Not with the people that you have already ruined the trust with. You know, I'm talking about anybody doing business with A.J. Brown in the future now. Are you comfortable sending him a text? Are you comfortable talking to him about details? Because now he has set the precedent that anything that you say can be and will be used against you in the court of public opinion.
Podcast of law.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think he does himself any favors by doing what he did. And I would also say, Ramie, Mike Vrabel did not lie. Let's not forget what happened.
And he said that. He
Right.
he came around to eventually, I guess, forgiving Mike Vrabel or understanding his position.
John Robinson got fired. The GM got fired. And the whole story was Vrabel wanted Brown. Robinson didn't. And then when I think it was after the Titans played the Eagles, right? And then once it was like obvious that Vrabel was probably right, Robinson lost his job. So that was the GM's call, not Vrabel's.
Yeah. And you're right, Nick. This probably doesn't help AJ Brown in future dealings and people trusting him with certain confidences or saying things to him off the record. But for us in the media, I love it. I love when
Oh, yeah, it's great.
Spill all the tea, man.
It's great fodder.
Drink it all up. I love it.
Yeah, I do too.
Good stuff. Put it all out there on whatever.
Did you guys notice that AJ Brown was taking a page out of Simone's book?
in what sense?
Bray.
Bray.
He was going Bray.
Yeah, that's right.
Coach Bray.
I didn't even catch that.
Yep.
For the culture.
That's a little bit more common in sports, though, right? When we talk names,
sure.
But maybe AJ Brown talks about the NFC East division.
Okay, Nick.
It's not division, Nick. It's diviz.
Diviz.
Thank you.
All
That's
right.
better.
I don't want to get it right. Nobody should. The top spot next.
Cattles
and Ramie.
Sactown. of the day?
Extra, read all about it.
Don't worry, because we got you covered.
This is how we do.
It's the Cattles and Ramie
Top Spot.
So the top story today, Ramie, has to do with the San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy having inflammation in that good old arm, elbow, shoulder area. Going to have some surgery that was supposed to happen yesterday. That surgery has now been delayed to at least early March. So have to wait for that to get done. Mike Garafolo of the NFL Network did say, though, that Brock should be ready. He should still be ready for the kickoff of the season, and which begged the question whether or not we see Purdy as the ride or die quarterback for this team in 2023, and whether or not QB1, if Brock being that QB1 is the plan. And I was thinking about this throughout the show. I'm going to play devil's advocate. Mic check.
Okay.
Because I had said at the beginning of the show, I would not choose Brock Purdy right now as my ride or die guy at QB1. I need to see more. I would like to see some kind of quarterback competition set. Who knows how he reacts to the surgery and all that, and the recovery and rehab. But I will play devil's advocate as to why Brock Purdy should be your ride or die guy. And the first thing I would say is it's all about the money. Because when you look at Purdy's contract, I mean, he really sets you up, Ramie, to spend like crazy in other places without having to worry about the quarterback position. I mean, he's not going to make more than $1.1 million through 2025. Wow. I mean, this year, $870,000. Next year, $985,000. And in 2025, 3 years from now, he is only going to be on your books for $1.1 million. And the cap is going to go up. You can funnel all of that money to just a tremendous amount of talent and say, just don't puke on yourself, and we are going to set you up to succeed.
I mean, that sounds good in theory, Nick, but this is a guy who's played 6 games at the NFL level and now has a surgery that he has to overcome. You know what I mean? And get back to form. And even back to form was a form that, again, we had only seen for 6 games, man. You have a Super Bowl ready roster. You have a team that's been to the NFC Championship 3 times in the last, 4 years, 5 years?
It's going to get more expensive.
I understand that, but we're talking about the most important position in North American professional sports, not just in football, in all of North American professional sports. You have to stop. Well, I can't say you have to stop rolling the dice, because unless they're going to trade for Aaron Rodgers, on some level, you're rolling the dice with the quarterback position again.
Yes.
In these precious years that you have of the Super Bowl window being open, you can't roll the dice to the degree, though, of actually, let me mix metaphors for a second. You can't put all your eggs in the Brock
Mix it up.
Brock Purdy basket, man. You just can't. I couldn't do it before the injury.
You're leading me right to my devil's advocate position number 2. The reason why. Because of history. I would argue, playing a devil's advocate again, if you're just jumping into your car, Brock Purdy would not be my ride or die. But if I was going to play devil's advocate, I would say, look at the history, man. I mean, how good is Jimmy Garoppolo? And you got to a Super Bowl. How good was even Brock Purdy last year? You went through 3 quarterbacks last year and got to the NFC Championship game. And who knows whether or not if you won that NFC Championship game, if you didn't lose yet another quarterback in Brock Purdy. The history tells me if there is any team on God's green earth in the NFL that could actually win at a high level consistently without a true elite quarterback or even a top 10 guy, it is this team. It is this coaching staff.
But let's say he gets hurt again, or let's say he's not even okay. Let's say he's not even average once all is said and done, and the league has more than 6 games of tape to watch on Brock Purdy. And then what, Nick? What's the plan B? What's your fallback if Brock Purdy is your ride or die guy?
Trey Lance. And if it's not Trey Lance, as I said, Trey Lance.
See, this is
bring in a vet for competition. Bring in somebody that you can depend on if in case he goes down. Marcus Mariota, Baker Mayfield.
See, I need a contingency not just for if he goes down. I need a contingency for if he's not good enough. That is entirely possible.
But it's
that
easier.
Brock Purdy is just not good enough.
It's easier with this team, with this roster, to replace below average with average at that position and still win. You are still a team that's going to be dominated by run game and defense. This is still Run CMC's team. This is still Nick Bosa's team. This is not Brock Purdy's team. This is going to be everybody else. And you're going to be able to add even more talent with that low salary number.
You can't just make the quarterback position an afterthought. I don't care how good your roster is.
I've thought about it.
You cannot make the quarterback position an afterthought when you're trying to win a Super Bowl.
I'm thinking, and you know what I'm thinking about? Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Run CMC, couple of young running backs in Mason and Davis Price. I also have even more money to go crazy. I could pop out the money gun and go bananas in free agency and go out and get another weapon if I want to. I can bring back McGlinchey at offensive tackle to play along with Trent Williams. And moving forward the next 2 or 3 years, I can keep pumping money in and winning football games with an average quarterback.
This is rare. What we're seeing right now is rare. The way that the 49ers have done this.
How can it be rare that it's happened over and over and over again?
It has.
Yeah, Jimmy G goes to a Super Bowl. Jimmy G brings you to an NFC championship.
No, I mean,
Brock Purdy brings you to an NFC championship.
in the course of the NFL and its recent history. We just talked the other day, Nick, about teams that don't have franchise quarterbacks that legitimately stay in the quarterback conversation for 4 to 5 years. You're already pulling off a magic act. You're already doing something that's out of the ordinary.
Don't you believe?
Sure, I do.
Don't you just believe in Kyle Shanahan?
Sure.
Don't you believe in how good this defense is?
Yes.
Don't you believe in Run CMC's game-breaking ability?
You know what I believe in?
What do you believe in?
Having a fallback plan, even for things that you believe in.
I am not saying don't have a fallback plan. Even if somebody is your ride or die, you got to have a contingency in case that person goes down.
I'd bring in somebody to compete with him, not just a contingency. I'd bring in somebody to compete with him. And I don't know that it would necessarily be Trey Lance.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Somebody more proven than both of those guys.
I rest my devil's advocate case. I think I did well.
Yeah, I mean, you made it sound pretty good, especially when you got all excited.
I just put like Skip Bayless.
Got the money gun out.
I just gave you a Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith right there. I could do it. I could tell you something I do not believe in and get all fired up about it. You'd be like, wow.
That would be great.
Yeah, really believes in Brock Purdy and the miracle work of Kyle Shanahan.
You know how you all see like these pictures of the guys signing the contract or like a quick video? If the GM was standing behind him with literal money guns,
yes,
shooting dollar bills up into the air.
Well, with the money that Brock
would be the agent, actually.
He'd be shooting out hundreds. He ain't working with ones. Oh man, 1.1 million in 2025.
I've always wanted to make it rain.
Be a high roller. You just said that out loud.
Yeah, I sure did.
It happened.
Is that why? There's something wrong with that? Don't we all want to make it rain? No, just one time.
I guess I kind of put make it rain with a certain activity.
Yes.
Yeah, and I could say I'd never really had the desire to like.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it looks like it'd be fun.
I had a buddy. Never mind. I'm getting in trouble.
No, don't stop there.
Get in trouble.
Don't stop there. You can finish that story. Don't worry about it. Nobody's listening. It's just you and me.
Wasn't making it rain like a rap star, but every once in a while we'd go and he'd have a couple stacks. Yeah.
Never had that kind of money. Never had that kind of just throw money up in the air like
that.
Not
really a big at the stage guy though.
Really?
Honestly. Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not.
Every once in a grand while.
I don't want a front row seat.
Like less is more for me. Like I don't park my seat there and have a sandwich and hang out. No. I see some people that.
Do you ever have a meal there? Because a lot of them will tout their buffet, and I'm telling you right
steak
now,
and eggs.
I'm not eating at that establishment.
What was it? Lemon pepper wings?
Lemon pepper Lou.
Lemon pepper Lou.
Although I hear that place is the exception to that. What was the name of the joint again?
Well,
I don't know if we have to go that far.
This the thing about down south, those places.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of the culture.
The
People
food
go
can
there
be
for that.
trusted at those establishments, is what you're telling me? I think that's what
When people say like if there was you could put that face next to like that word or that definition. You are the literal meaning of give an inch, take a mile. I could always get to the line, but I'm always thinking
the place went viral. I wouldn't be the first to put the name of the establishment out there that Lou Williams
Magic
went to.
City.
Magic City. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. I forgot.
There's a lot of things that I would wish before making it rain. That's what I would just say.
Well, at least make it drizzle.
All right.
2 things near the top of my list I want to do before I die: dunk a basketball and make it rain. Those are.
You want to walk into one of those places and be like, I'm gonna make a sprinkle.
Has to be Magic City. Has to be.
What if they put a hoop up at Magic City that was within dunking height, and I dunk a pile of money?
I was offered
make it rain.
I was offered
and
mornings.
Make 2 dreams come true at the same time.
I was offered mornings in Atlanta a few years ago.
Yeah,
and I always think about that.
Could have been a Magic City regular.
Would my life
a remote out there?
Yeah, would my life have changed dramatically? And all of a sudden, I would not be saying what I'm saying right now. I'd be like, oh yeah, love them places.
I hear those lemon pepper wings are life changing.
You have to try it one time in your life. I'll just leave it at that.
What, the lemon pepper wings? I will.
Both. Magic City, lemon pepper wings, making it drizzle, rain, sprinkle. I refill. Yeah. Do it one time.
I was at a bachelor party one time in Vegas, and I went to the wrong club.
Oh my
What?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Because my buddies went to one, and then as I was on my way in like the Uber, nobody told me that they changed establishments. So I roll in, and they're like, "Oh, dude, we just left." I'm like,
now see,
did you already pay the cover?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Now see, if you would have want to get your rules of texting while driving, you'd have been on point here.
No, we don't endorse that.
That's on my friends.
I'm just saying. I'm not endorsing it. I'm just saying.
I walk around the perimeter of the entire place. I'm like, I don't see anybody. Hey, what's going on here? So finally I reach out. I'm like, guys, where are you? What's like, is there a section I'm missing here?
Dude, we out in the north side of the strip, man. Where you at?
And they're like, we're at this one. I'm like,
So did you stay and get your money's worth for the cover charge, or did you go?
no, it was a bachelor party. I rolled to go meet my buddies.
I might.
By then, about half of them were like comatose.
I think I'd hang out for a minute. Why so?
Yeah, but then you're just paying more money. You know what I mean?
What? No, either way, I'm going to be spending money.
Yeah, but I'm just sitting there, the lonely guy. You want to be the lonely guy in one of those places? You don't want to be the solo dude? You ever see the business guys that roll up in those places?
Yes.
The older businessmen that wear the suit and ties and they walk right in. They just sit there at the bar for like 3 hours.
Yeah, I've seen them.
You don't want to.
I mean, no, I haven't. I don't go to those places.
A quote that might drive a certain fan base up the wall. What is it? We'll find out in 90 seconds.
Cattles and Robbie. magic while the other, we're still trying to figure that out.
Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
Capital Casino, conveniently located on 411 North 16th Street in downtown Sacramento. And Ramie, the Tom Brady Las Vegas rumor and innuendo was pretty hot and heavy, even going back to his pre-Tampa Bay days. And
remember the Dana White story that he almost put that whole thing together?
Yeah, Dana said that it was done. Dana said it was done until John Gruden walked in. Chucky walked in and ruined it all. And you know who else said that was the case? Recently? Aaron Waller. This is from Forbes, Jeff Fedotin. Another juicy rumor circulated that recently retired Brady was headed to the Raiders for his post-Patriots years instead of the Bucs until John Gruden prevented the acquisition at the last minute. Here's what Waller said on Radio Row, quote, "I've heard it from multiple sources that I respect and I've been close to." Sources close to me. Tell me.
He plays for the Raiders.
Yeah. Do you think he has a source or two in the organization?
I think he might, yeah.
He says they're like, yeah, Brady to the Raiders was a lock. It is weird how he says to the Raiders like he's not
like he's not a member of the team. Yeah.
Instead, the Raiders stuck with Derek Carr, who they ultimately benched, as we know, late last year. So this is one of those, my producer in Virginia used to say, a sliding doors moment, right? What would happen if history was changed in some kind of way? All these other doors slide open. All these other things happen. And I started to kind of think of that when I saw that. First of all, we can all agree that that was an all-time boneheaded move by John Gruden.
Yes.
Boneheaded. I had no idea why you would turn down Tom Brady when you have Derek Carr.
Oh, I know why. Ego. Because if Tom Brady came there and they took the team to glory,
It's a fair point.
It'd be Tom Brady getting all the praise and all the shine, and John Gruden would be in the background.
It wouldn't be the what was it, Spider XY banana or whatever he used to talk about.
Right.
It wouldn't be about Gruden's offense and his offensive
He
genius.
wanted to be the savior.
That's a fair point. It's a great point. But boneheaded move. First, I mean, if this happened, you would have to say that the Raiders would have been the odds-on favorites to make a deep run and maybe even win a Super Bowl title within the last couple of years. You bring Brady in, that changes the entire dynamic. Who knows who comes with Brady, right? Does Gronk go with Brady? You already had a couple of weapons that you could utilize. I would imagine other players would make themselves available to play with Tom. They did that in Tampa. Just one of those moments where if you're the Raiders, man, oh man, but beyond just having a chance at a Super Bowl, because it's rather obvious to say with Brady instead of Carr, that gives you a better chance to win a title. Think about the cost. Because if you brought Brady in, Ramie, you're only spending money on him. It straight up free agent deal.
Right.
And it's not like Brady was like, pay me $1 billion. $25 million a year for a couple of years. That's all he wanted. He wanted the Drew Brees contract. So the Raiders would only have to give him $50 million over 2 years for him to be their franchise quarterback. And Chucky said thanks, but no thanks. The acquisition cost very, very small, all things considered, to bring in the greatest of all time, not Ramie's, mine. And you also then think about, you would have traded Derek Carr for assets. So not only do you bring Brady in for just money, you are then able to pivot and trade Derek Carr for picks. And now you could supplement your roster around Brady. And on top of that, what are you going to give up now for a quarterback? Now, Brady, does he stay for another year?
The
if he's
ripple
in
effect
Vegas?
just keeps on going, man.
Like if does he stay in Vegas longer than he stayed in Tampa? Maybe. If they're competitive, maybe he plays for another year, right? Maybe Gruden was worried about his job. Maybe Chucky said, if I bring Brady in and we don't win, Brady's going to get his guy McDaniels, or he's going to get his guy Bill O'Brien. They're going to kick me out.
Just forget that it's Brady and he has these connections that you're talking about, Nick. When the new quarterback we just saw the new coach brought in, and who's the scapegoat? Who bites the bullet when things don't go according to plan? It's the incumbent. It's the guy who is already there when you're talking about the dynamic between quarterback and coach. If Gruden brought Brady in and it didn't work, the finger gets pointed at Gruden, and he becomes the scapegoat. Same way Derek Carr is the scapegoat right now, and he's the guy who's on his way out. So there is another. I mean, that is another reason why John Gruden maybe put the kibosh on this whole thing. But bottom line, man, if you're a Raiders fan, this has got to be gut wrenching. Like and the dagger just keeps getting twisted deeper and deeper with this Tom Brady story, and the more that we find out about it and how close it was to happening, and especially Nick, when you look at, as you just did, the ripple effects of it and how far they reach and how much impact this had on the team, this one non-signing of Tom Brady and what could have been versus what has been these last few years.
And not only does it impact the Raiders, and obviously it would have impacted Tampa. What would have happened with Tampa? Do you trade Derek Carr to Tampa? Could have happened. What's the NFC South look like if Brady's not in Tampa? How does that affect Drew Brees' final, year or whatever it was? Does he have a better chance? And then you look at Kansas City. What's the impact on Kansas City? Because now Tom Brady is in your division. And how much fun would that have been if you had Mahomes and Brady going against each other, right?
Yep.
But how does that change the math for the Chiefs? The Chiefs might not have as good of a seed. They might not be, a top 1 or 2 seed. That might change their math and push them back a little bit. They don't have home field advantage. Maybe because of no home field advantage, they're not as successful as they have been. I mean, there's just the sliding doors, the nonstop, as you called it, trickle-down domino effect. It's truly amazing to think. If that happened, if Brady went to Vegas, it would have impacted the entire league in so many different ways. Coming up, Michael Scotto joins us to discuss the Kings in the NBA.
Cattles and Ramie. Cattles 1 mile at a time during the afternoon drive. Cattles and Ramie.
Sactown Sports.
All right, let's head to the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Let's talk Kings. Let's talk NBA with our friend Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype, the pod, also NBA writer. Michael, where would you stack up the Kings story within the NBA pre-All-Star landscape?
I think for Sacramento, it's been one of the better storylines of the NBA, I think, this year, no question. I mean, for them, I don't think it could have gone any better to have Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox as all-stars, especially after, in a way, that Tyrese Halliburton trade was kind of criticized for a little bit because he was the guy that wanted to be there and help them build. But they stuck to their gut and went with De'Aaron Fox, and it's worked out for both sides. Mike Brown has been one of the best coaches in the NBA this year, I think, with the job that he's done for them. And the role players that they've brought in, guys like Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk, etc., they've all been able to gel nicely. And sometimes when you bring in a new group like that, you don't always expect it. But for Sacramento, fortunately for them, it's gone well.
We were talking about a statistic earlier in the show that with the Kings' current win percentage, and if you extend that out to the end of the season, they'd finish with 46 wins, which is higher than almost anybody expected for this Kings team. But in most years would have you finish somewhere between 7th and 9th in the Western Conference. Are the Kings, are they lucky? Are we seeing some fool's gold here? Are they a product of some parity, or do you think that this is real, that what they're building here?
I think first of all, you have to really think back to the last time they were in the playoffs. So I wouldn't be complaining.
Sure.
In any facet. I think for them, it's a product of I think they're a good team. I think that, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that Sabonis and Fox would have been all-stars, you couldn't have drawn it up any better. So for them, I still think, their ceiling is going to be determined in the future by the development of Keegan Murray. And if he can become somewhat of an all-star caliber player for them, if he can, then you really got something. If he becomes more of a role player, then you kind of have to go back to the drawing board and find maybe that third all-star, because it seems like nowadays that's what you need if you're going to be a title contender truly. I know Boston has 2 all-stars and they've made the finals, but their supporting cast is so strong that it kind of makes up for that. It is a stars league. I think they've got 2 nice building blocks in Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. And I think the big question is if Keegan Murray long-term is going to be that all-star caliber guy, and that'll help them take that next step.
Michael Scotto is with us here on Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Michael, to your backyard in New York, the New York area, and KD and Kyrie over the weekend said that their trades were good for the NBA. Do you agree?
Are they good for the NBA? I mean, they certainly draw a lot of attention and eyeballs from that perspective. I think, if you would ask that to maybe Brooklyn, I don't know if they would feel the same way about it, because they went right. They went from title contenders, whether it was fringe or not, to that's not really in the cards anymore. So to me, I think it's anytime. Look, the NBA, I don't think any league does the transaction type of periods better, whether it's the draft, free agency, trade deadline. The level of buzz is sensational, and you could see it across Twitter. It's not just NBA Twitter. It's across Twitter worldwide. So, yes, there is a point to that they bring a lot of eyeballs and attention. What I would say to you is I think that duo certainly was underwhelming, and they would admit that in terms of, the expectations that they had coming in trying to be championship contenders. They won 1 playoff series. They're in their time together, and that I think comparatively to the Darren Williams era, in terms of winning in the playoffs, it wasn't that much different. and you look back and the big three of Harden, Kyrie, and KD is probably going to be the biggest what if, or one of, if not, in NBA history. Because being here in the borough and witnessing it up close and personal, I know it was only 16 games, but I promise you the rest of the NBA was shook when those three were together. And you thought they were on the precipice of a dynasty, and it unraveled quicker than origami. So I really think I definitely think at some point down the line, this will be a documentary, if not on ESPN 30 for 30 something. There's a lot of stories behind the scenes that have yet to be told.
Were you surprised the Kings didn't make any moves at the trade deadline? And with all the activity in the Western Conference, who, if anybody, I assume the Suns, do you think leapfrogged them in terms of the quality of the roster that they put out there?
I was not surprised that the Kings didn't make a trade. I think they're in a good position right now for where they're at. If they were going to make a blockbuster move, you would have had to move Keegan Murray. He doesn't make a lot of money right now in his rookie contract. You know, half of large transactions are about matching salaries these days. Certainly Phoenix, Matt Ishbia wanted to come in and make a splash, the new owner of the Suns, and I don't think you could have made a bigger splash than Kevin Durant. Certainly for them, and then the Los Angeles Clippers, both teams upgraded on paper in terms of talent. It's going to be about meshing it together. Memphis, ever since John Moran said that he didn't fear anybody in the West, I think that kind of poked the bear for the rest of the Western Conference a little bit, and they've kind of come back to earth a little bit. Denver's been sensational, but we've seen this from them before. I'm curious if in the playoffs it's going to transfer over, because at a certain point, that's kind of the next step on Nikola Jokic's resume. So for Sacramento, I think they're in a good place. I think obviously with the trade deadline, other teams gave themselves a strong chance to leapfrog them. And, Dallas obviously getting Kyrie Irving certainly bolsters their offense. So for them, they're a couple games back from Sacramento as well, and you got to give them a puncher's chance. And even the Pelicans, when they were healthy at the start of the year, a little bit more with Zion, they were one of the top teams in the West. I think people are going to sleep on them a little bit, but I expect them to be a force coming into the back half of the season as well here as well.
Last one for you today, Michael. We thank you for your time as always. The buyout market's happening. Russell Westbrook officially signing with the Clippers today. Any names left that could impact teams? You hearing anything, or the bigger names have already moved and made their decisions?
I mean, to me, I think certainly the only guy left right now that I would say maybe is a needle mover is Will Barton. I'm curious if his old buddy Tim Connolly with the Timberwolves clears a roster spot to bring him there. But time will tell. I think Will Barton can help the playoff contender. At this point, other than that, I don't know if I really see anybody that quote unquote moves the needle at this point. I think certainly the big dominoes have fallen. I think for Kevin Love going to Miami, I think for Cleveland that could hurt them down the line, because I believe Kevin Love still has enough left in the tank to impact winning the rest of the season. And I think in Miami, he's going to have a chance to play more minutes and will thrive. A lot of people love going down to South Beach anytime they get a chance. Warmer weather, from them in Phoenix, I've talked to older players, it helps them with their joints, recovery time. A lot different than playing in Cleveland, where it's usually a little colder this time of year. So I think that's an underrated factor that's going to help Kevin Love. And yeah, I really think Will Barton's the next guy right now. Other than that, could there maybe be another guy or two that hits the market? Sure. But I think Will Barton's the next big needle mover at this point.
Michael Scotto from Hoopsite. Michael, thank you for the time again. It's appreciated. Let's do it again soon.
My pleasure. Have a great night.
You too. There was Michael Scotto on the Folsom Lake Honda hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Yeah, I mean, look, for the Kings, again, we've been talking about the buyout market, and I did not have high expectations for their ability to land anybody that could really impact things. Will Barton is a guy that's out there. He could help scoring off the bench for sure, but he has relationships for being in the league so long. You wonder if, as Michael brought up, maybe the Timberwolves could make sense. Some other teams that are contenders could make sense for him. And still looking at Nerlens Noel. Could he get a buyout? There's a contract situation with him. He might not get bought out, but if he does, that'd be a guy I wouldn't mind to bring in. Who's 6'10", 6'11", athletic, can block some shots, grab some rebounds for you. Pretty decent passer as well.
But
can't shoot a lick.
It's a matter of getting these guys to come and play here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? When they're gonna have, if they're sought after, if they're worth having on a team, there's gonna be competition and other teams trying to lure them. So is Sacramento and the Kings the place they want to be? Have they rehabbed the image, the perception of the franchise that much? Is this thing so good that this is going to be a destination or a landing spot for guys? I think that remains to be seen.
Capital Casino is conveniently located on 411 North 16th Street in downtown Sacramento. Aaron Rodgers has a conspiracy theory. Yes, another one, I guess. You don't want to miss it, though. Here, it's coming up next.
Cattles and Ramie. Cattles
and Ramie
on Sactown Sports.
So Ramie and I have made a decision. We're going to do this entire segment standing. Not sure why, but we felt like doing it.
I feel like I need to stretch my legs.
Yeah, dude, 4 hours of sitting. Listen, people have a lot more, tough work than we do.
It's so hard to sit for 4 hours.
No, it locks you up a little bit.
It does.
You got to get the blood moving a little.
I know you got back issues.
Yeah.
Mine will just flare up every once in a while. And like Friday and Saturday, I could barely walk. And it's still a little tight. Still a little tight.
Yeah, I saw you kind of, a little bit of a, I don't want to say gimp on your way out of the studio.
No, it's not quite that, but definitely.
I could tell there was a gate change.
There's something going on here.
There was I got my legs wide.
Same here.
That's what I'm doing.
Wide base.
That's what I'm doing.
Gotta get a wide base. Get low. You want to get leverage.
You want defense from your Sacramento Kings. Look at this right here. Ramie and I, defensive position, squat.
I'm not going to slap the floor. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the slap the floor.
The Woj from Duke or whatever. That guy.
I always hated slap the floor guy when you played basketball.
He was a hardo.
Coming back on defense.
I don't know if I did that. I might have done that a couple times. A little bit of a hardo.
Hate that guy.
Little 5'7" Italian hardo.
Jason Wood, were either of you slap the floor guy?
No, never.
All right, good.
I couldn't stand Woj either from Duke. Put that on my hate list.
Come on, man. It's like the Deuce Mason thing, right? Deuce does this through the whole show.
I used to.
His energy level's bananas. I thought I had a lot of energy.
I used to alternate when the last time I hosted a 4-hour show.
Yeah.
I used to alternate. I'd stand for hours 1 and 3.
Bad.
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
I might go back to that. Stand for hours. What is this doing to our camera angles, though? Simone, you're usually the one keeping an eye on that.
I thought you'd never ask.
Does it mess us
looks
up?
just okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It looks just okay.
Not great.
Okay.
Just okay. All right. I'll take just okay.
By the way, we did earlier in the show draft mockery, driving pet peeves. People weighed in on these. YouTube.com, Sactown Sports 1140. Before we get to Aaron Rodgers' conspiracy theory, driving without lights on it's 6:30 at night to me. So put your lights on, people.
Yeah.
Nerman, not even going to try to pronounce the last name. I'll butcher it. So Nerman says people trying to merge in last second.
What does that mean, though? Merge in last second.
Merge into your lane, I'm guessing. Like, try to get over last second.
Oh, but you know that's what you're supposed to do, right? You're just causing more like when there's let's say there's 2 lanes that are jammed up and then the third one is going to end, so it's moving a little bit.
I don't think you have to do it last second. I do think people try to merge too early and then they do the whole break in the middle of the lane and
you're also just causing more of a jam.
Yeah,
up. You're just making the line longer. Don't do that.
Try to glide. That's my whole thing.
Glide in.
Glide
in, man.
Kyle Lewis, pretty specific here. When a semi passes another semi on a 2-lane highway, Big Rig takes 3 miles to pass another to go 64 instead of 62. Very, that is pretty funny though. Kyle Lewis.
Oh, you know what? I didn't get this one in earlier. You know the guy who doesn't find his gas pedal until you try to pass him?
Oh yeah. Then it becomes a measuring contest.
He's going 5 miles under the speed limit. You're like, all right, I'm just going to go around this guy. I'll just go around him.
Oh, you think you can
and then
pass
you start
me?
to go around him, and he's like, oh, you think you're going to go past me?
You're going to pass me?
Again, this wasn't a personal thing, dude. I'm just trying to get where I'm going. You're going a little slow, so I tried to go around you. That's all.
It's out of control.
If you're going to go fast enough, I'm happy to be behind you. It's fine.
Trevor Falk says people who block intersections in high traffic. You know those people that
Yes. Yeah.
That's a rough one.
When you sit out there in the middle of the intersection.
And I have one more.
Okay.
When somebody tailgates you and you have nowhere to go because there's a car right in front of you.
Yeah.
And they're like riding up on you like, dude, I got nowhere. Do you want me to fly over the people that are ahead of me? I've got nowhere to go.
I'm kind of used to that because I grew up in Chicago where that's just how people drive.
Yeah.
Like even when we call it moving traffic. Like everybody's bumper to bumper going like 60.
Well, yeah, I mean,
everybody. But we're all with the understanding that this is what we're doing.
And there's how many rear end jobs do you get
plenty,
in Chicago?
Plenty, so many. Yeah, but it's just we all know this is what we're doing. This is how we roll.
All right, let's get to Aaron Rodgers. I said last week that we are at war with aliens.
You did.
There have been a lot of things shot
that.
out of the sky.
And I told you, even if it was aliens visiting, it doesn't mean that they're here to invade. They might be our friends.
Well, Aaron Rodgers has some
welcome
thoughts about what's happening here and why it might be happening.
Uh-huh.
You imagine Aaron Rodgers has something to say.
No.
He's always got something
That's
to say.
crazy.
He's the gift that keeps giving to Pat McAfee.
That guy usually just stays quiet and just keeps on keeping on. You know what I mean?
Aaron's like, you want me back next Tuesday? Pat's like, I'll have you on every day if you want to come on every day. Seems like you're a fountain of information. So here was Rodgers with McAfee.
Especially Navy pilots, I believe, with unidentified flying objects. So this is not surprising. Obviously, there was some sort of Chinese spy balloon that was up in the air, allegedly. There's been a few other objects that have been shot down. I believe that this has been going on for a long time. Interesting timing on everything. There's a lot of other things going on in the world.
What?
Like what?
You're saying things are. You're saying, oh, looky here. Is that what you just said? Bang. That's what you said?
What?
Could be some of that, yeah.
No, that doesn't happen.
Of course not. Did you hear about the Epstein client list about to be released? Too? There's some files that have some names on it that might be getting released pretty soon.
How many people care about the Epstein list, do you think? Do you think it's enough for the government to cook up a plan of shooting things out of the sky? Is the Epstein list that crucial to most of America?
I don't know. Maybe. I don't think so. I mean, maybe. I don't know. But you know what's weird?
I feel like that's just like all political network stuff, right? The people who watch politics like every night.
By the way, I didn't even catch the allegedly with the Chinese balloon.
Allegedly, it was a Chinese balloon.
Dude, he is really one of those people. You know, I don't know if you have any conspiracy theorists in your life, Nick, or if you have people who will entertain conspiracy theories, but you know they've gone really far down that path.
Down the rabbit hole.
When it's not even the conspiracy you think it's going to be. You know what I mean? Like, with all these things flying around.
You're expecting a right, he hits you with a left.
And the government saying it's not aliens. We have no reason to believe that it's aliens. I would think Aaron Rodgers would just come out and go, it's aliens, you guys. Like, you know what I mean? But,
yeah.
But it's
like,
not
no,
even,
there's like green guys. I've seen one.
But it's not even that. He has to take it one layer deeper. And no, it's not aliens. What it is this mass distraction from the Epstein files. Like, and that's when I look at my friends who are into conspiracy theories and I'm like, oh, like you're that far gone. I can't even stay on the same page as you now.
I honestly don't have a lot of friends, if any, that are like
I don't have any that
theorists.
are like, too deep in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Try to stay away from that stuff.
Not like
I don't have much interest.
Not dangerously deep in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But
it's always weird when it's not the conspiracy that you think it's going to be.
It is a great point where like you think he's going down deep, but he goes even deeper.
Right.
It's like, nah. If you think I'm going somewhere, you just wait. And it feels like there's more. Like there's more beyond just that too. Like it just he is an endless fountain of.
I love the allegedly the Chinese balloon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, China admitted it was their balloon.
No,
there is
listen,
we know what happened here.
Allegations.
It was a balloon from China that we shot down. That's what happened. There's no alleged.
I don't know, Ramie.
He is the gift that keeps on giving. We need an Aaron Rodgers on this show. We need somebody who'll just come on here and say,
do we?
Crazy, outlandish crap that goes viral. Yeah, absolutely. I'm down for it.
I feel like those people aren't hard to find. We could probably find one.
I mean, one that people actually care about and want to hear from.
Here's Timmy in Tuscaloosa. Those aren't balloons. Anyway, thanks to JJ. Thanks to Simone. Fantastic work.
Allegedly.
Hey. Ramie, good stuff. I didn't say it. He said it. Back tomorrow.
Thank you.
Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports.
Don't do it. Reconsider. Read some litter. Sure on the subject. You sure? You know we got your back like chiropractic. If that do you dirty.